everyone who is a mother or a mother figure a happy Mother's Day. Um, Women, parents, mothers play a very special role in our society. Incredibly grateful to all of them for what they do and their sacrifices on a daily basis. Okay, we'll start this meeting soon. I'd like to welcome everyone today. I'm President Garcia Morales, and I call this regular board meeting on May 12th, 2023 to order. The time is 5:01 p.m. I'd like to remind everyone to silence your electronic devices. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the land in which we gather is the territorial homelands of the Nuwu, the Mowapa Band of Paiutes, and the Las Vegas Band of Paiutes. We heard earlier, Trustee Williams is on the phone. We're going to start by the Pledge of Allegiance. And the presentation of colors will be led by Western Air Force JROTC, Commander Cadet Captain Iris Martinez, Cadet First Lieutenant Leila Vasquez, Cadet First Lieutenant Miranda Perez, Cadet Airman Greg Hunt, and Donnie Starling, Western High School Air Force JROTC. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carry, color, forward, march.
Thank you very much, everyone. Please have a seat. Okay. Trustee Cavazos will make the motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to adopt the agenda with the following changes. Additional reference material is provided for item 2.07, 2024-2025 school and staff calendars, and 2025-2026 school and staff calendars.
Thank you, Trustee Cavazos. Trustee Guzman?
I second.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Cavazos and a second by Trustee Guzman. Can you please cast your vote? Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Thank you. Colleagues, the motion passes 6-0. Noting Trustee Zamora is absent today. All right, now before I open the consent agenda, before I open the consent agenda, is there anybody who would like to speak on the consent agenda but has not completed a public speaker card? Those are yellow cards. All right. Okay. We have two individuals who signed up in advance. James Bayless, followed by Autumn Tampa. Welcome. Welcome.
Well, hi, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jara. James Bayless for the record. So I'm mainly wanting to address just 217. That's one of the main reasons why I came. It's the agreement for you guys for child services for bus transportation. But ironically, if you're in foster care and you're enrolled in CCSD, shouldn't you already get the bus anyway? And if so, then this seems to be more of similar to a door-to-door agreement, which would be my second question. If this is a door-to-door agreement, where they pick up the people at their houses, then shouldn't we follow my son's door-to-door agreement before we start signing on to more? Because remember, Jan 10th, door-to-door agreement applies to, and then this is what this agreement basically is.
Mr. Bayless, what item are you speaking to?
217.
Thank you.
So basically, if a student enrolls in CCSD, they automatically qualify for the bus. And if they're an IEP, they definitely automatically qualify for the bus. So why are we making an agreement with Child Services on something we should already be doing? That's kind of weird and redundant at the same time. The packet that you guys received, I'll be addressing in public comment. You guys have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Bayless. Is Ms. Tampa here? Thank you. All right. All right, colleagues, at this time, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Trustee Guzman.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. Trustee Brooks.
I'd like to second the motion.
Thank you, colleagues. We have a motion by Trustee Guzman, a second by Trustee Brooks. Please cast your vote. Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Colleagues, that motion passes 6-0. Okay. Trustee Bustamante Adams will now please read the warrants.
Thank you, Madam President. Ratified warrants as listed in the bills payable transmittal and the board memorandum number 18-22-23 in the total amount of $123,670,004.48.
Thank you, Trustee Bustamante Adams. This time, we're going to move on to item 3.01, Focus 2024 Strategic Plan Update, Chronic Absenteeism and Student Safety. Hi, everyone. Welcome. All right. Oh, this is an action item. So, and we do have one individual who has signed up in advance for this item. Before we continue, if there are any public speakers who would like to speak specifically about this item, you need to complete a yellow card at this time. I don't see the rush of public speakers on this item, so I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Jara. Dr. Jara?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I'd like to just make some opening comments. When you look at, this is an update to our strategic plan, I believe our final one for this academic school year. The data is very clear that there's some work that needs to be done. This has been a topic of our conversations internally and also with our building principals. The concerns that are coming here on obviously chronic absenteeism and student safety are critical. But these are some of the things that we have been facing that are coming onto our campuses from our community. So you'll get an update on where we are and some of the course corrections that we have to make. Our numbers are unacceptable, and I will look and see some direction from us, a collective board, and what community supports we need for us to be able to address the challenges that we're facing in our school. Chronic absenteeism is a priority. Kids need to be in school. So where do we get the help from the community? And then obviously our student safety, as I highlighted yesterday in our press conference, there's a lot of violence in the community that's spilling into our campuses. So we are deeply concerned, some changes that we're going to make, but I just wanted to kind of open it up, and the team is going to share some more specifics. So thank you, Madam President and board members.
Thank you, Dr. Jara. I think we need to turn it over to Mr. Mansell. Dr. Mansell, welcome.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, for the record, Dustin Mansell, Chief Academic Officer. I am joined today by Dr. Barton, our Chief College Career Equity and School Choice Officer, Yolanda Flores, Assistant Superintendent of Education Services Division, and Greg Manzi, Assistant Superintendent of the Assessment, Accountability, Research, and School Improvement Division. Today, we are here to provide an update on chronic absenteeism and student safety. Chronic absenteeism and student safety contributes to the vision of the Board of School Trustees within student success, focusing on safety and engagement.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, for the record, Yolanda Flores, Assistant Superintendent, Education Services Division. Presentations related to chronic absenteeism are consistently brought to the board, most recently one on March 23rd, where I shared first semester data. Looking at our original theory of action, it states that if we identify root causes for missed school situations, use outside partners to assist with chronic absenteeism efforts, then chronic absenteeism rates will decrease. This slide shares the high leverage strategies that we're using to combat chronic absenteeism. In the area of developing and supporting teachers, principals, and staff, we implement a district-wide multi-tiered system of support to promote student success in both academics and behavior. We implement and utilize a comprehensive data dashboard to analyze student achievement, data, and early warning indicators relative to attendance, behavior, and course completion to guide data-driven decision-making at the school level. In the area of expanding opportunities and supports for all students, we increase partnerships to expand mental health, wraparound services, social workers, school safety personnel, behavioral interventionists, and counselors in schools. Our first data slide shows our chronic absenteeism rate over the last 5 years. It is important to note that the data for the current year is through March 10th or the end of the third quarter. It includes the overall district rate and also reflects data by ethnicity. Currently, Black African American students are experiencing the highest chronic absenteeism rate at 45%, and our Asian students are experiencing the lowest at 17.2%. This further allows us to dig in a little bit into the different ethnic groups. We are in the red across the board. We are still experiencing we're still experiencing problems in the area of chronic absenteeism across the board. If you look at the next slide, it takes the highest group, the gap between the highest and lowest student groups, so that Black African American group that I mentioned in the last slide, and also that Asian group, and shows the disparity between the two. Further comparisons are on this next slide. We take time to look at other school districts that are similar to us. In this case, they report their data on a semester basis, so we won't have more data until the end of this semester and the next time that we report to the board.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, Mike Barton for the record. To highlight the challenges, successes, and lessons learned regarding chronic absenteeism in this report, the board is very familiar with the first bulleted challenge, that this is a slower than expected rebound for attendance figures based on the aftermath of the pandemic. The other bullets are new in nature after a deep dive into the challenges with chronic absenteeism. The second bullet describes that internally we lack some functionality with our technology system to get more prescriptive with targeted groups. So I'll describe later in the timeline of next steps how we're building a tool, an attendance tab, to really get strategic about priority groups in relationship to chronic absenteeism. Third bullet under challenges, external punitive measures lack enforcement. Again, this has been a robust conversation about what has worked outside of the Clark County School District and what accountability exists to support our schools, our principals, our teachers. One that does work is the DMV measure. If students are not showing attendance that is at a satisfactory level, there can be a consequence that students at that age that are permitted to drive, that it excludes them from getting their driver's license. However, there are other external punitive measures that are, again, in law that we've been doing for many, many years. Truancy notices, citations for truancy, educational neglect at the elementary level. And we're finding that again, this is the voice of principals, and some of the frustration that we're hearing is that they do all the steps, they issue the truancy notices, leading to continued truancy, and then at the end, there are no quote teeth to accountability outside of the Clark County School District. So wanted to make sure that the board was very well aware of this factor as far as that external punitive measure lack of enforcement. The fourth bullet, lack of consistent support from multi-agencies. When you think about all of the government agencies locally, the district, and what we're held accountable to and for, we know that the level of support from other agencies outside of the district varies. There's a lot of variation. And when you think about that variation, it's financial variation, support for personnel to support these efforts. And I'll go into the successes here in a moment and highlight one of those great partners that has helped us immensely with real dollars and interventions to try to tackle this very complicated issue. And then, as Dr. Jara mentioned in his introduction, the community challenges are immense. And sometimes I know that as a system, we feel that this is a metric that we stand on an island to be held accountable to for this, and we take this metric seriously and want to change it and get it going in the right direction. But it is a complex metric that is outside of the school walls and the typical school day, if you will. The successes regarding chronic absenteeism, again, the county, Clark County specifically, has been a phenomenal partner in supporting this effort around chronic absenteeism. That started with AB 309 from the 2019 legislative session, where there were real dollars provided to support attendance navigators, TPOP. I know that everyone's heard that, the Truancy Prevention Outreach Program, where they work hand in hand with our Education Services Division and our attendance officers in schools to try to get students and their families to come to school. The second success is that as Ms. Flores has done work in the attendance office with our attendance enforcement office and our officers, we're mobilizing support at middle and high schools that are experiencing the highest chronic absenteeism rates. So we're deploying resources there. And there are even our attendance officers that are going out to schools to provide that mentorship or even help out with tardy issues on the campus to get kids on time to class. And then another success that I think was mentioned in the last board report, incentives for attendance have been reinstated. So with the governor's proclamation earlier this year, we as a district right now have communicated out to our field clearly that attendance incentives are appropriate to acknowledge students for not perfect attendance, but improved attendance, exemplary attendance, and that sort of thing. Lessons learned, we know that chronic absenteeism impacts all indicators. It impacts standardized test scores. It impacts grades. It impacts everything across the board. And the recovery will require increased comprehensive initiatives. And again, as the third bullet says under lessons learned, we'll continue as a system to evaluate what we're doing and is it working? Is it having an impact? But again, we will need to reach out to other partners to help with this very, very complex issue. So next steps, concrete next steps as far as what we're looking at to doing. Some of these you've heard before, some are new. Student town halls are ongoing. We actually had a town hall today at one of our high schools, again, to gather that student voice feedback as far as what's going to help students get to school, stay in school. And again, we continuously hear relationships are so critical and important for our students to want to come to school. But it's more than that. We also hear about those family issues and the outside the district, how it's complicated. Attendance officer professional learning has occurred since December and will continue to occur through this month. And then the other piece that we heard from our principals, they're struggling in this area and they've been very, they need help. And again, they come to Central for support. And we've developed a Tier 1 systems and structures and Tier 2, 3 intervention support document to help schools know, according to MTSS, how to help our students who maybe are at that Tier 2 level, showing they're on the edge of chronic absenteeism, how to get them to come to school. With Title IV dollars, we started this in February with some extra Title IV dollars that we had as carryover and we plan to continue this through December of '23. Dr. Jara had started this with home visits on the weekends, and it's proven to be a successful strategy to go door to door and target students. So working with the engagement office and Dr. Rafalski leading this effort in partnership, that we want to target our schools and do home visits, targeting our schools that have the highest chronic absenteeism and doing those potentially after school hours or weekend home visits. And then finally, as I mentioned before, the last bullet on the next steps, the building that attendance tab in Infinite Campus, it's being tested right now. It's almost complete, but it's another tool to help the field. I'll add one more bullet that needs to be very deliberate, and it goes back to some of those challenges I mentioned. We need to get stakeholders together from other entities, whether it's judicial partners, municipalities. Why do some of these things not have, as I quoted before, teeth in consequences for families or students that may not be coming to school?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, for the record, Dustin Mansell. We will now shift our discussion from chronic absenteeism to student safety. The student safety results were previously presented on May 1st, 2019 and May 12th, 2022. The measures of student safety included in Focus 2024 is derived from 4 questions from the district-wide survey for students, as shown on the slide. Question 1, I sometimes stay home because I don't feel safe at this school. Question 2, students feel safe in this school. Question 3, this school has safety procedures that work. And question 4, this school is safe. It is important to know that the first item, I sometimes stay home because I don't feel safe at this school, responding negatively is the desired outcome. Therefore, responses to this question are reversed to calculate the measure of student safety. The district-wide survey for students is administered on an annual basis, typically in the months of November and December. The most recent administration of this survey took place during November 1st, 2022 through December 2022. The district-wide survey for students is available in both English and Spanish. The current iteration of the survey is in its 7th consecutive year and was developed during the 2015-2016 school year in partnership with West Ed. The questions are from a combination of prior CCSD iterations of the survey, the University of Chicago Consortium on School Research, and the Nevada Department of Education. The full district-wide survey captures student perceptions in a variety of areas, including parent involvement, learning attitudes, social learning, and perceptions of school performance. A purpose of the district-wide survey is to elicit feedback on the culture and community, which informs our theory of action. If we focus on strengthening school communities by implementing multi-tiered system of supports, or MTSS, student perceptions of safety will increase. The trustees may recall in December of 2021, during the regular board meeting, the board approved policy 6120, multi-tiered system of supports. Policy 6120 requires all schools, in collaboration with stakeholders, to implement the district-wide framework for a multi-tiered system of supports, MTSS, to ensure all students receive equitable access to opportunities to promote each student's academic achievement, social emotional growth, and behavioral development. During the 2022-2023 school year, we have strategically rolled out professional learning sessions for our educators and administrators, focusing on MTSS.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara. For the record, Greg Manzi, Assistant Superintendent of the Assessment, Accountability, Research, and School Improvement Division. The district-wide survey for students is administered in grades 4 through grade 12. The district overall results for the perception of safety are shown on this first slide. A consistent trend that will be observed across all charts shown today includes the increase in perceptions of safety for the 2020-2021 results completed when the district was implemented distance learning. The 2022-2023 results show fairly stable and consistent student responses from last year, with slight increases in several student groups, including Black African American, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, and 2 or more races. It is also important to note that at this time, the full results of the district-wide survey are now available on the district website, data.ccsd.net, under the surveys category. These reports include the results for the district, region, and individual schools. On the next slide, you will find the results from elementary schools. For the elementary schools, the results include students in grade 4 and grade 5. The grades at elementary are purposely selected to allow for the highest degree of independence in the completion of the survey, therefore more reliable results. The results of the 2022-2023 school year reveal percentage positive responses slightly lower across the majority of student groups when compared to the previous year results. On the third slide, you will find the results from the middle schools. For middle schools, the results include students in grade 6 through grade 8. Once again, the results of the 2022-2023 school year reveal percentage positive responses slightly lower across most student groups when compared to the previous year. On the final data slide, you will find the results from high schools. For high schools, the results include students in grade 9 through grade 12. We can observe that the results of the 2022-2023 school year are slightly increased across all student groups, with the exception of the Asian student group when compared to the rate from 5 years ago. The district strategic plan outlines the target percentage of students who feel safe as measured by the district-wide survey questions previously outlined. The table on this slide provides us with the 2022-2023 target and actual results, including an indicator that the targets were not met, but we do observe a year-over-year improvement in the district rate from 79.0% to 79.3%, and the high school rate from 75.6% to 77.7%. Limited context is available to compare the district performance to others. It's important to note that the comparison rates were generated based on similar questions, but no district asked identical questions to ours. The results from the Los Angeles Unified School District are derived from one question: I feel safe in this school or in online school sessions. When reviewing the annual trend for Los Angeles School District, we do observe that their results were likely influenced similarly to ours in the 2020-2021 school year while in distance learning. The results for Washoe County School District, Denver Public Schools, and Miami County Public Schools are derived from a singular question, all similar to, I feel safe at my school. Results for Albuquerque Public Schools and Houston Independent were not available for comparison. We acknowledge the challenges, successes, and lessons learned as we reflect on the results. We recognize that we encountered a challenge as students continued to reacclimate to school structures and systems. We also recognize the challenge with the availability and use of social media, putting isolated incidents on display that may not represent the overall student perceptions revealed on the survey results. We also acknowledge that our schools are open systems affected by our communities and that community challenges impact our school culture. Oftentimes, community events can create situations that spill over onto our campus and are inherited concerns that our schools must now grapple with beyond the focus on academics, but we have to work together to help the community heal. With the results, we also observe successes with an increase in survey participation when compared to the 2021-2022 results. We also observed that results aligned to the pre-COVID-19 results across all grade bands with modest improvement when compared to the 2019-2020 school year. As part of the continuous improvement process and reflection of the results, we developed lessons learned and planned for the adjustments. Through the delivery of district-wide professional learning for MTSS, we learned that many schools had not fully refined their systems and structures until the second semester of the school year after the district-wide survey window closed. Our next steps include released additional internal visualizations of the district-wide survey results. The results of the district-wide survey will be utilized in our school continuous improvement process as part of the school performance planning from May 2023 through June 2023. In the fall, school continuous improvement teams will have an opportunity to revise the school performance plans and incorporate action steps that address the observations from the district-wide survey results. The district-wide survey will open again in November 2023 and remain open through December 23 until winter break. The results of the survey administered for the 2023-2024 school year will include an analysis of additional student indicators, bringing together information together connected to MTSS, such as social emotional data, behavior, and attendance.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, Dustin Mansell for the record. Thank you for this opportunity for us to share the update regarding chronic absenteeism and student safety. We'll pause at this time and take any questions from the board.
Thank you, Dr. Mansell. Thank you, Ms. Flores. Thank you, Dr. Barton. And thank you, Mr. Manzi. At this time, colleagues, we open the floor to questions, and I don't see anybody in the queue, but I do now. Look at this. All right, Trustee Guzman.
Thank you, President Garcia Morales. Thank you for this presentation. This is really great, and I appreciate all the time and effort, especially when looking at chronic absenteeism and safety. This is so important to our kids. I want to go back to the chronic absenteeism. I want to know where the student town halls are going to be planned to be, and then also if students are leading them.
And I already forgot the protocol again.
You're okay?
You're okay.
Jump in.
Yolanda Flores for the record. So we had town halls this year based on data. So if a school was showing high chronic absenteeism rates, and we targeted that school and helped that school and gave the kids a voice at that campus. Most recently today it was Desert Oasis. Next year we'll plan those ahead of time based on this year's data. So we're kind of trying to get ahead of ourselves. The students aren't yet running them. Dr. Scavella has been leading those and teaching others how to do them, including myself. So hopefully by next year we'll have several people facilitating, but that's the goal, is to eventually have students running them themselves.
I just think that would be really powerful if a student led. And then for the Title IV funding to use for absenteeism, going weekends door to door, what does that look like?
Sorry, Dr. Barton, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, Trustee Guzman. I know that I haven't personally been involved in these visits because I know that the superintendent started it a few months ago, but it's really going door to door to provide resources, support. I know that working with Dr. Rafalski in the beginning when this was first launched, it's giving students that may be credit deficient opportunities to enroll at a alternative school. Whether it's Desert Rose or adult education. It also gets to basic needs, though. I know that there's a protocol that Dr. Rafalski, when she launched this with the superintendent, it's about looking at the family dynamic, and there may be food insecurity. So it gets to the level of need that student may need to get back to school and reinitiate with our system. But we have these Title IV dollars to continue this effort. I believe that we targeted 108 schools with the highest chronic absenteeism rates in the district. That will be our target effort with this door-to-door campaign. But that door-to-door campaign, and when you start getting to the root cause of why kids aren't coming to school, we have found that it can make a huge difference in getting children back to school and showing ultimate success.
Do we have any community partners that are helping with this?
Go ahead, Dr. Barton.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, Trustee Guzman. I don't believe so. I think that this is something that we, as a system, and decided to do, that we thought that we've got to move this metric, we've got to move this number, and we've racked our brains over and over again. What can we do differently to try to increase or improve these chronic absenteeism numbers? But this is a standalone effort at this point as we do the door-to-door campaign.
Dr. Jara? Thank you. Dr. Barton. Dr. Jara?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Trustee Guzman, Dr. Barton is right on. This is something we started, but I also want to make sure that we're on the record that principals have been doing some of these home visits as well on their own. Okay. But this is part of what we are learning, and when we do these on Saturdays, is the challenge. We're learning the real challenges that our families are facing that are bigger than the school district can solve alone, right? So we are documenting, and this is part of the effort that we are going to then have to start reaching out to others to help us. You know, as I've had conversations with a lot of our principals, they say we can do 7 to 3, reading, writing, and math. That's what that's what we know what to do. The other challenges that our families are facing are bigger than the Clark County School District. So we are documenting them, and then we certainly need to work together to get others to help us.
Thanks. I have just one more question that has to do with safety, and I'm sure it has something to do with absenteeism. Are we tracking things like the TikTok viral videos that threaten our safety in schools? Are we tracking that to see what our absenteeism is on those days?
Dr. Jara? Allow me 1 second. Let me find you. Let's go.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. That is a conversation we need to look at, and this team won't have that. That will be school police, but we can look at that and bring that back.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Madam President. And as always, Trustee Guzman saves me some work here by asking my questions ahead of time. Follow-up, real quick question. On the town halls, and also too, thank you, Dr. Mansell and team, for this presentation. We appreciate the updates. On the town halls, I know that they are data-driven, and I believe at an earlier update, are the principals allowed to ask to have one of these student town halls?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, Trustee Cavazos, yes, they are. And Desert Oasis was one of those schools that we identified early on and had conversations, but they came to us and we're really being proactive about it.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that, and I think it's a really good road to go down to have these student town halls. I think they're great. Another question had to do, again, partially answered already, and it has to do with the visits home, going back to, and I don't remember, we don't need to go back to the slide, but the deployment of the attendance officers for mentoring. So that's a whole different animal then from like the weekend visits that are happening. And can you talk a little bit about that? Just, it was a constituent question.
Yeah, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, Trustee Cavazos, we've realized that attendance officers really need to spend some time with students and get to know families and dig in a little deeper than they had in the past. So it's not just about a one-time visit, it's about developing a relationship with the family. So we have now 4 attendance officers who are doing that at different sites. Von Tobel being one of them that they're working with currently. So they're expanding their services to include just more of that relationship building with students and making it more long-term. So they have somewhere between 20 and 30 students on their caseload, and they consistently go and visit with them and work with them, and also have started to work with the families more and more.
Okay, thank you so much. That sounds like that it's something that is very consistent to keep track of the progress or any roadblocks that may come up. A couple other just real quick things here. Let's see, I lost it now. On the early, when we talked about the early warning systems, you guys answered my questions very well during briefings, but again, for the public constituents, are we talking, when we talk about the early warning indicators, things like our system, like for instance, Panorama, or things that might come into Safe Voice? Anybody who wants to answer.
Mr. Mansell? Mancy?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, Trustee Cavazos, Greg Manzi for the record. So we have several systems that come into play, Panorama being that our screener for our social emotional health, the ability for students to raise their hand there, indicate that they need that support. We also have several internal reporting mechanisms that provide a comprehensive look at students, a student profile for having those individual conversations to understand, are these behavior, attendance, grade issues, really a comprehensive look to provide that support for the students to get them back on track.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I might have one other follow-up question, but I see that Trustee Brooks is in the queue, so I'm good for now, Madam President.
Thank you, Trustee Cavazos. Trustee Brooks?
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the presentation. Not good news, but I think that none of us are surprised that we're in this place. I 100% agree that this is a community issue, and I also agree that I don't think that we can solve it alone. So I want to talk about the future, right? Like, what is it that we could do? Who would be a good partner for us to try to get kids to go to school? Do we have any partnerships in mind?
Dr. Jara?
I think, Madam President, members of the board, Trustee Brooks, I think what we need to do is build and expand the work we're doing with the county. The county, as Dr. Barton mentioned, AB 309, when that law passed, if you recall, we had some of those conversations that were led by Commissioner Kirkpatrick. Then I know we work with Jack Martin and T-Pop and some of that. I think that is a model that's working. So how do we expand that and bring other municipalities to the table? I think that is the key, and work with the board on the leadership there to address the needs. They're all our kids. They're not just ours. They are our kids of this community, and I think that model can be expanded with others.
I appreciate the home visits as well and the student focus groups. I have a question about parent focus groups, because I know you're hearing from students, but those students are in school. So are you doing something to have a focus group for the parents? Because it might be possible that they're really struggling themselves, and I'm guessing that you're probably picking up on that when you do these home visits. So is there a way to have partnership, not just support the kids? The kids, they need support. The whole family needs support. So I don't know if that is something that comes about through T-POP.
Madam President, members of the board, Trustee Brooks, on the T-POP, I don't believe that, but I'll let Dr. Barton answer that. But these are things that we're learning. It's how do we help the family when we go in and have the conversations, and I think that is what we're doing with our Title IV dollars. And I looked in the audience. You're going to hear from our phenomenal Superintendent's Advisory Council. I think this is on their agenda as well to share with you from the student perspective of some of the things that they need to know. But that's as far as parents, I think that's a great next step for us to look at. Maybe we do need to have community conversations like we did around the budget for parents, and I think that's something that we can work together on.
Okay, last question. Do we have any bright spots when it comes to attendance? Do we have any good examples that have great attendance that we can learn from?
Dr. Barton?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, Trustee Brooks, it's hard to find bright spots with this indicator. That's just being honest with the board and the public. It's a challenging issue that we continue as a cabinet, as a team, to try to explore what can we do next to change this and get it in the right direction in a rapid manner. But as far as bright spots, we hear from our principals consistently, they need more support on this. They've told us over and over again that they're struggling in this area. They're very open and vulnerable, telling us they need more help, and they're trying their best, but they need something else in addition to what they're already trying.
If I may, Madam President, members of the board, Trustee Brooks, one of the things that we learned yesterday from one of our elementary principals, and we're going to take that back, I think the community needs to see, because as they're, you feel like, because you're right, the data's not good, so you can get down, and our principals are doing everything they can, and there's that struggle. Our principals are now disaggregating the data to encourage their teachers, because as a teacher you're seeing your in totality your achievement numbers. Now what our principals are doing is they're disaggregating the data to see that they are making gains with the kids that come to school. So what we are going to do is, how do we then start telling that story? You come to school, you're going to learn, but when you're not in my class with my teachers and my principals, that is a challenge. So maybe that storytelling is something that we need to get this community behind, to make it a priority to address. I know that the other one is Commissioner Kirkpatrick in her district, District B, with our principals, they bring in businesses as well. Because I was there a couple of years ago, right? Actually, prior to COVID, in one of her community meetings, and to really where the businesses aren't open and serving kids and for business during the school hours, and say, get the class, right? So I think this is part of the conversation that we need to have.
Thank you, Dr. Jara. I'm going to go up to Trustee Williams. Do you have any questions at this time?
I don't. I'm just really grateful for this report, even though it isn't the best, but it's okay. At least we know where the problem lies and we can start to fix it. So thank you guys so much.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions before I turn it over to a colleague. Thank you, Trustee Williams. From the presentation, both presentations that I heard today, I hear that these are complex issues. They're not one level, there's one way of addressing it. We really need a variety of partners and parents, multi-agencies, municipalities, judicial groups. We need to have conversations, ongoing conversations, and take continuous action. One thing that struck my interest was, Dr. Barton, when you talked about the technology, that there are, I want to hear a little bit more about the technology when it comes to systems on our end, for example, for parents. Do we have systems currently in place to support, to help our families and help them clearly identify absences when their students are leaving campus when they shouldn't be, and or ways to easily record unexcused absences? Dr. Barton?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara. As far as systems, we definitely have systems in place, and I'm sort of talking not about the technology, but some of the truancy notices that are issued are provided to the parents on at a certain number of unexcused absences. And so there's clear communication to those families that your child has missed this many days, and here's a first truancy notice. It's memorialized in writing, it's delivered, and it's delivered electronically and in hand form as well. And then that leads up to, again, the continued truancy process where there's very clear in writing legality indicating that there could be a consequence for continued truancy leading to a citation. So all of that happens, and again, it goes back to my previous point, then it goes to the courts, and what happens is 9 times out of 10, if the family and the student, if they don't have any kind of, I don't know if this is the right term, but a hit in the system, that it's not observed, there's not a consequence that comes from the outside agency. We do have systems in play where, an Infinite Campus where parents are notified when there are absences, and again, the teachers taking that accurate attendance is critically important so that parents are notified when a child is tardy or even missing second period, for instance. But I think the piece that I mentioned was about the attendance tab, was getting more strategic, helping a tool in IC for our principals, as Ms. Flores is working on, to help them tackle the students that are reaching that chronic absenteeism benchmark at that point of the year, how to get more deliberate early on. So that's something that's being worked on right now. It's almost complete, and we'll roll it out in the summer. But I think we've had systems in place, but again, the lack of teeth on some of those truancy notices, we've heard that loud and clear from principals. They're doing that work and doing it according to the code of conduct. But then what? Then at the end of the day, they can continue truancy notices all day long, but nothing's happening. There's not a consequence. And then that's ed neglect at the elementary level as well.
Thank you, Dr. Barton. I recognize that this is a very large issue, and with technology, yes, to the pieces around administrators having access to digestible data that they can help them make decisions. I think from a parent's perspective, having a system that allows parents to automatically indicate whether their student is going to be absent or not. There may be some important investments that we may need to make as a district if we don't already have those, because every time I have to do a absence note for my almost 13-year-old, it's on paper, And, we have, yes, on paper. I recognize that there may be other ways potentially to record attendance data for parents especially. And I know this is less, it impacts, right? Every piece of the system impacts the chronic absenteeism. But just want to put it out there that there are investments that could potentially be made with it. This costs money, and we can always benefit from ensuring that our system is fully funded so that we can continue to invest in additional pieces. I also want to point out that the Infinite Campus system is required, like we are required to utilize Infinite Campus. That is a state mandated tool. So, we're also working with what has been provided to us by the state. The other item I just want to point out, I really especially like the importance of collaborating with local interagency groups, multi-agency groups. I remember back in November, we received a public records request from Henderson Police Department asking us for specific truancy numbers in Green Valley High School to determine if there's a correlation between truancy and crime. Clearly the municipalities are interested in these issues. We've got to make sure that they're at the table to help us address these concerns, because a public record request is really not enough to help us address the issue if they're really concerned about it. I hope that they are interested in coming to the table with solutions and resources. All right, that's all I have for now. Oh, I have one more question. Well, I'll go back on the queue. Trustee Cavazos?
Did you want to go ahead, President? Okay, thank you. I'll just make this real brief. First of all, I just want to say our staff does an amazing job whenever we do have, incidents in our schools, crisis response, and, our psychologists, our social workers, everybody. Without referring to any recent incidents that have happened at, on, or near our campuses, similar to something that Trustee Guzman made me think of, do we track on, after we've had like a hard lockdown because of an incident, do we track the absentee rate like on the days after anything? Is anything like that going on? I've had a lot of questions about that from the constituents.
I believe Dr. Barton answered that question earlier. No, maybe? Dr. Jara?
Madam President, members of the board, Trustee Cavazos, we do not track it per se. But we know that attendance is lower. That goes back to the community involvement, but it's not an actual tracking system that we have in place.
Okay, thank you. And also just wanted to say, shout out that, the parent messages that go out, the district does help with the messaging and everything to get that information out. But that is a question that I've been asked to see if there's any correlations, specifically more having to do with hard lockdowns, because there are fewer of those than there are of the soft lockdowns. So I thank you, and thank you, Dr. Jar.
Okay. Before I turn it over to public comment, I want to ask, do we have any data on the correlation between classroom size and per grade, specifically per grade, and safety perceptions? Is that something that we currently have? No, probably not, no. Just a curiosity, I noticed as students got older, the perceptions and safety, from the presentation earlier, I noticed there was a trend upward, or downward, I'm sorry, downward, when it comes to safety. And, classroom size is huge, is a huge influences a lot of different factors when it comes to students' academic outcomes and feelings of safety. Just thinking about the investments that come from the state, again, from the state legislature to help us reduce classroom sizes. It only goes up to 3rd grade. Is that right? Yeah. And of course, I just want to point that out. I think it's important to continue having these discussions that safety is not an isolated challenge, that there are lots of layers to this, and classroom size may be part of the challenge as well that we have to address. Dr. Jara?
Madam President, members of the board, Trustee Garcia Morales, I think it's something that we're continuing to do. I mean, anecdotally, but and you just reminded me something. I know that we're going to wrap it up and go to public comment. But if you recall, when I went to the Ways and Means presentation, when superintendents were summoned, I requested for $21 million for police officers, so we can have a police officer in every school, every middle school, 2 in every high school, our magnets, and then also 1 for every 5 elementary schools for a total of $21 million. I think it's important for us, if we're going to keep our teachers learning, teachers teaching, and our children learning, this is an investment that the state needs to make.
Thank you, Dr. Jara. Okay, everyone, we have one individual who signed up in advance for public comment on item 3.01, and I don't have any yellow cards for this particular item. It's Mr. Bayless. Hello.
Hello, how are you doing today? James Bayless for the record.
Give us one moment, please, while we set you up.
Yeah, I got you. I was watching.
I've got it. Thank you, Mr. Bayless.
No problem. So James Bayless for the record. So I guess we'll just mainly address my son's situation, not just the whole in general. So attendance. Did anybody ever think maybe the attendance problem, maybe the principal pulling a child out of school problem and not reporting it? Because Mr. Barton's familiar with me, so would it be a surprise to you guys that the director of truancy is familiar with my situation? And he's been waiting for basic high school to even reach out to him about being in. So if your own truancy program that Mr. Jara, you know, the money that you also spend for
Mr.
this
Bayless,
program.
please stay focused.
Right,
on
but
the
I'm saying
board.
there's already money out for this program. It's called the truancy program, you know, the task force. The only reason why I know about that is because there's learning. I got to meet your friends. They came to my home. They're actually the ones to help me open the due process against you guys because they saw how much. So again, with the as far as attendance numbers, my son was home last year, but ironically, during your guys' robocalls like you mentioned, he only missed 1 class that day, but he was at home playing PlayStation. So your infinite campus may be a little questionable. You know, since a teacher can put numbers in and change them and alter them. I think actually Deanna proved that last year when she changed all my grades for me. So yeah, I proved that factor. So the situation is when you guys are talking about a community problem, this could be a school problem. Because when the director of truancy is familiar with my situation, my son hasn't been able to go to school since Jan 10th. And the letters that you guys mentioned about truancy from Mr. Barton, would it be surprised to tell you I got one this year from the lady that we mentioned last meeting? If you read that packet I just gave you guys, you will see that ironically it's one of your truancy letters, and she completely fabricated a whole bunch of dates. I have evidence to back that up. So wouldn't you be surprised that if you read that thing, you'll see some emails. I gave her access to my Dropbox. She tried to delete some documents out of my Dropbox, but she couldn't get to the recycling bin. No, that's not part of admin access. So that's all in that packet that you guys received. And I would just like you guys to know that I do have friends from the city, state board, and legislature. You know, the guys you've been looking at. So they're all watching my stream over here with the government people that I deal with that I'm going to federal court with. So I just wanted to let you guys know that they're all familiar with my situation and loved your guys' presentation. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Bayless. At this time, colleagues, I'm looking for a motion. Trustee Guzman.
Thank you, President Garcia Morales. I'd like to move that we move this presentation. Is it a move or is it an approve? It's an approval? Okay, thank you. I'd like to move that we approve this presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. Trustee Brooks.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Brooks. Colleagues, at this time, I'd like for you to cast your vote. Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Colleagues, that motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much for your presentation, Dr. Mansell, Ms. Flores, Dr. Barton, and Mr. Mancy. All right, we're going to move on to item 4.01, President's Student Advisory Council, Year in Review, 2022 to 2023. Dr. Jara, take it away.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, before I turn it over to Dr. Rafalski to introduce our phenomenal students that are coming here to present, I just got to tell you something you already know because you met them. Our children, our kids, I know they hate it when I call them children. Our students are phenomenal. This was the one day of the month that I had some of the best times just listening to their thinking. What they nominated 3 to come present their entire recap, but there's others that are sprinkled throughout the audience. You're gonna hear their final presentation, but it was delightful to just listen to their thinking, to listen to their advocacy and their problem solving. Not only did they set their agenda, their topics, but then they went back into their schools to problem solve with their colleagues and their classmates. So it was, I hate to say this, but it was the best day once a month. I don't want to hate to say this because I had a lot of great days on a monthly basis with students, but it was, to me, it was just so enlightening and rejuvenating to spend 1.5 hours a month with our kids. So I just thank you for your time, students, kids, children.
Thank you, Dr. Dara. Dr. Rafalski?
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Jara, Shauna Rafalski, Chief of Staff for the record. I'm joined this evening with the Superintendent Student Advisory Council. The Student Advisory Council is a group of juniors and seniors nominated by principals to represent their schools. They've met monthly, discussing and learning about issues they have identified as important to them and have developed recommendations that they're going to share with you this evening. The beginning of this process, they identified things such as extracurricular activities, mental health issues, respect in school, and safety as the original issues that they wanted to talk about. And these amazing young people saw the connection with all of these items and determined that their year-long project was going to be surrounding chronic absenteeism. This is a culmination of their work this year. I would like to turn the presentation over to them as they are really the ones that developed the content to share with you this evening.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, for the record, Nicholas Kelly, senior from Sierra Vista High School.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, for the record, Jenna Najjar, junior attending College of Southern Nevada High School.
Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Jara, for the record, my name is Iconi Mandavero, and I am a senior at Southwest Career and Technical Academy. I want to begin by talking about the role of the superintendent. Oh, next slide, please. Oh. Perfect. Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Jara, I want to begin by talking about the role of the Superintendent Student Advisory Committee, which is being the acting liaison between the superintendent and his staff and our peers, and by sharing our experiences and perspectives in the education system and identifying the changes to be made. Our committee represents a diverse group of students all across the district, and we strive to give a voice to the students and represent our student body's concerns. It is important that this committee continues and more students are allowed to join it. The majority of the students in the committee currently are leaders within their schools already, so it's important for the following years to have a more diverse voice even within the committee. Next slide. At the beginning of the year, we set an agenda for ourselves with topics related to CCSD that we were interested in learning about. This included mental health, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and chronic absenteeism. were the highest priorities of the group overall. Today, we will give you an overview of what we learned and what we discussed as student priorities related to each topic, and even some recommendations we think that would help students in CCSD. So the first thing being support and wraparound services. When we first met as the Superintendent Student Advisory Committee, we discussed mental health resources and wraparound programs are crucial for high school kids because they can offer various supports that enable them to achieve academically, emotionally, and socially. As a group, we were allowed to walk through over 10 different services and take valuable information to our schools, which was vital to start the chain of sharing valuable information with the right people. As I mentioned, CCSD has many unique programs and services that students can readily use, like Hazel Health and Rethink Ed, a full mental health curriculum so students and staff can learn about mental health. Next. Students in high school are forming crucial interpersonal connections, so social support is needed. And wraparound services and resources are essential for high school kids because they may be used to help them overcome obstacles, excel in their studies, and flourish socially and emotionally. And according to the state of Nevada, the current student-to-counselor ratio in CCSD is below the national average, and 15% of students in Nevada report dealing with depression. This is not a well-known fact, but we learned through discussion that there's an action that CCSD can take to alleviate this issue. We found that having more counselors, school psychologists, and social workers in high schools is essential for several reasons. Having more of these support staff on campuses would allow for the needs of students with unique and different backgrounds more help. School counselors, psychologists, and social workers can help address students' academic, emotional, and social needs by providing individualized support. Mental health issues can be prevalent among high school students. The pandemic has exacerbated some of these issues, but school counselors, psychologists, and social workers can play a vital role in identifying and addressing these issues. These professionals can provide counseling and other mental health services to help students overcome challenges and thrive in schools. Having more of these support staff in our high schools can ensure that students receive the support that they need to succeed academically, emotionally, and socially. As I said in the beginning, many of us were surprised about the wraparound services available in our district, and we know that the marketing for these resources to students can, these resources to students can be challenging, as mental health is a topic that carries a lot of stigma and shame among teens. However, there are several ways that we as a district can utilize to promote resources to students better. The first is social media. Social media can promote mental health resources, events, and programs to students. Students who would love to participate or attend these events, we just never know about the things happening, and neither do our parents. We need better open communication. Properly marketing mental health resources to students requires creativity, persistence, and willingness to break down barriers and stigma. Staff also needs to be better educated and trained on how to help struggling students. Most students don't openly talk to their teachers about issues that they have going on because they fear they won't be appropriately supported. Using Safe Voice and other resources is backfiring, as students is using them more as a joke because we're taught that those are only resources that we can use for things like school shooting threats. Not if we're just having a bad day and we need someone to talk to. By leveraging social media, collaborating with student organizations, and overall better staff awareness and normalizing mental health, CCSD can better help promote mental wellness and help students thrive. Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Jara. For the record, Jenna Najjar, attending College of Southern Nevada High School West Campus. I'm honored to stand here before you today to share with you what we have learned during the Superintendent's Advisory Meeting. During the meeting, we discussed the importance of recognizing and supporting students from various backgrounds and with different needs. As you all know, CCSD has a very diverse student population, and we must address the needs of every one of our students. That is why the Equity and Diversity Education Department has been established to focus on creating a safe and inclusive learning environment for all students. Additionally, we have the Unified Department, which works towards eliminating any form of discrimination, bullying, or harassment in our schools. These departments ensure that all students feel welcome and respected at school, regardless of their background. Next slide. One of the key points that we discussed during the meeting was that the student diversity is not reflected in teacher and staff diversity. CCSD is one of the most diverse districts in the nation, with an ever-growing percentage of over 80% of students identifying as a minority other than white. However, this is not represented by faculty and staff. With an overwhelming percentage of 66.7% of school administrators and 64.6% of school staff being white, students feel a lack of connection to their staff. Our educators need to understand and appreciate the diverse backgrounds and cultures of our students to create an inclusive learning environment. One of the key issues that we brought up was the importance of ensuring that our curriculum and learning materials are inclusive of many viewpoints and reflect the diversity of our students. We live in a diverse and multicultural society, and our schools should be a reflection of that. Students should be able to see themselves and their experiences represented in their textbooks, literature, and other learning materials. This will not only help to create a more inclusive learning environment, but will also broaden the perspectives of all students. Unfortunately, we have found that there is a lack of equitable access to diverse curriculum in some schools. Some special programs and classes have more access to diverse curriculum, while others do not. This should not be the case. Access to diverse curriculum and learning materials should be a priority for all students, regardless of their academic track. We must strive towards creating a curriculum that represents the diversity of our student population. This means including voices and perspectives from different cultures, races, and religions. It also means highlighting the contributions of underrepresented groups in history and society. We must work towards ensuring that access to diverse curriculum and learning materials is equitable across all schools. By doing so, we can ensure that all students are receiving a well-rounded education that prepares them for success in the diverse role they will enter after graduation. One of the key recommendations was to continue to safeguard and expand access to a curriculum that presents and celebrates diversity and equity. We also discussed the need to recruit more diverse classroom teachers and staff. Having a diverse group of educators is essential for creating a welcoming and inclusive learning environment for all students. Additionally, we recognize the importance of investing in departments like equity and diversity and unify. Currently, these departments only have one person and low funding. Thus, it is hard to achieve any goals with the lack of resources given to them. We need to prioritize these departments and give them more funding and staffing. These departments are critical in promoting equity and inclusion at our schools, and we must continue to support their efforts. Overall, making sure that students feel safe, valued, and seen at school is a top priority for our district. By continuing to prioritize these recommendations and investing in our students' well-being, we can create a learning environment where every student can thrive and succeed. Thank you for your time today. We are looking forward to seeing how you will implement these recommendations moving forward to ensure the success of our diverse students.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara. For the record, Nicholas Kelly, senior from Service High School. I'll be speaking about chronic absenteeism with the topics of outreach and awareness, school engagement, and incentivization. Chronic absenteeism has become a hot topic since returning from the pandemic. However, before I begin anything else, I would like to express my gratitude to Superintendent Jara, the engagement unit, and some of our CCSD leadership. Over the past few months, key CCSD officials in collaboration with the engagement unit have been conducting community walks, previously mentioned in the last presentation, and have been going around the district to different students and visiting their homes, just encouraging them to come back and just ensuring that everything's going to be okay. This is called Project Graduation, and I think it's imperative to highlight this because it's showing that an effort is being made by our leadership to improve chronic absenteeism. I really do hope that this will continue for the future. In order for us to get back to where we'd like to be as far as attendance goes, I would like to propose some changes that will be later mentioned on. The relationship between student and teacher should be prioritized. Students learn the best when they have a good connection with their educator. They tend to be more involved and pay attention, ultimately leading to better attendance. One of many reasons why students do not attend school is because they're not comfortable with their educator or they dislike them. Also, a push for increased community school events at our schools is something that would also be very beneficial to our students. Families having the opportunity to connect with their administration, teachers, and other school officials will give that safeguard that CCSD is here for them. Though students play a role in them being absent, parents are also responsible for their students and their students' attendance. By getting the trust of parents, I believe that they will take more of an active role in their students' education. If the school board pushes school administration to host more events in schools that include family, then there will be a better connection with everyone involved. Extracurricular activities are also a major reason why students attend school. Whether this be sports, clubs, or on-campus activities, they all give reason and a drive for students to attend school. It has been brought to our attention that some of these programs are very costly and lead to students being discouraged to participate. Transportation can also be an issue when events are far away from the school or when a parent, or when a student's parent or guardian is unavailable to transport them. As a whole, there must be a reason for students to go to school. These few things are in our control, meaning we can make a difference with them. Our students deserve an investment into their future. By improving these things, we can look forward to a better CCSD. For starters, we recommend creating more events within our schools and also the community as a whole. Encouraging school administrations to invite families onto the campus more frequently shows families what their students' environment is like. Though a student plays a big role in choosing to come to school, parents also have a key role as well. By getting the trust of parents, as previously mentioned, it is more likely that they will pay more attention to the attendance of their student. To continue, incentivizing students and even our teachers will provide for a better and increased motivation to attend school. A district-wide usage of an incentive program such as the App 5-Star or something similar can promote prizes and other rewards for good behavior. One thing in particular that would work well with students is food incentives. This could be gift cards to restaurants, in-school food vouchers, and more. Providing this will help students remain engaged and focused on learning, ultimately causing for better attendance in our schools. And also a lighter atmosphere while offering a solution to chronic absenteeism. This will give students a drive to come to school, knowing that if they perform well in them with their absences, then they can be incentivized for it. Though ensuring proper punishments are in place for students who commit serious school rule or district violations, the best way to improve behavior is through non-disciplinary actions. Our council understands that the district is currently working on enacting more restorative justice methods, and we encourage this to continue and to make this a priority. Some students do not bother coming to school because they are scared of the consequences. Ensuring that there are alternatives to instant discipline is important in creating a positive environment on our campuses. We understand students must be held accountable for their actions, but in situations where discipline is not entirely necessary, using an alternative solution would benefit the student more. Keeping what we recommend in mind, I would like to follow into budget priorities. Providing additional funding for social workers and counselors at our schools would be supportive for students. So they're able to go directly to these personnel to speak with them about their concerns. Furthermore, supplemental training for staff on campuses so they're able to better suit themselves to situations when they arise. Continuing into equity, diversity, and inclusion, we believe additional funding to recruit a diverse staff for our students so they can better feel represented in their schools. And lastly, regarding budget for chronic absenteeism, offering support to students so they are able to pay for fees and programs and other activities in school is also a beneficial way to show that our students are a top priority. Creating attendance incentives and supporting a budget this way will also assist in this process. With this said, we encourage this board to consider all that we have discussed this evening, from mental health to equity and diversity, and of course, chronic absenteeism. Our district has the potential to provide the best for our students. If there are any questions for us, we're more than welcome to answer them. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, students. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jara.
Yes, and they're ready to answer. I'm sure that you will have questions, Madam President, members of the board. Very, very proud. I sit here, just listen and like a proud papa, proud dad. Great. And I know if I can have the others, I know there's others here, but they can stand so we can recognize them. The other students who are here from our advisory. They were hard-hitting. They shared, some things that were here. What I did learn is that our marketing, if you heard correctly, what they said is not reaching the students. When I said, well, we use Facebook, they laughed because they're past Facebook. They were honest to say that's for old people. But I think I heard a lot of great recommendations, Madam President, board members. We do have top students in this school district, and I am very proud of them. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Dura. Clearly a shining light. Thank you all for your service, for your time and commitment to this process, to the meetings that took place on a regular basis, and this presentation at large. I'm going to take a moment of privilege to ask the first question. I mean, I thank you for your honesty. That's the other component of this that I don't want to miss an opportunity to share, is that your insights and knowledge is incredibly valuable and important. I love that to hear that there is an awareness. Dr. Jara, the feedback that was shared is internalized on our end and hopefully turned into additional action that will support students. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the chronic absenteeism and ideas. Mr. Kelly, you shared, right, Mr. Kelly, you shared some potential ideas in incentivizing food. Can you share a little bit more about how using incentives and maybe some ideal incentives that students like yourself in high school or in younger grades may enjoy or benefit from the most? And are there other incentives besides food that would, you know, in help with absenteeism?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara. Yeah, so regarding the food incentives, so one thing I've noticed is at my school specifically, we have food vendors come in, whether that be different like fast food companies, but some of the programs will come in and they'll bring in different food, like different like fast foods. So like offering like vouchers for those to the students would be beneficial. So I mean, I think one thing we can agree on is food is definitely something that is, you know, drives students nowadays. As far as that, excuse me. Sorry. Besides that, just like gift cards to any sort of like clothing places. Of course, clothing is very popular amongst teenagers nowadays. Amazon, just like big brands like that. I think gift cards are definitely motivating for students and a good way to incentivize them as well. Besides that, I don't have any other particular recommendations.
Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues. Trustee Guzman?
Thank you, and Starbucks motivates me, so I totally get that. Totally understand. Thank you so much for this presentation. I really enjoyed visiting you when I was given the opportunity to come and join you, and you've come a long way since I was there, and so I'm really excited. I have a couple of questions for you. First, how did you figure out we only have one person in the Equity and Diversity Department?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Jara and Trustee Guzman. They actually visited us on to our committee meetings, and they spoke to us about the different resources they had, and they introduced themselves as a department. And I particularly asked, "Oh, how big is your department?" And he responded with, "Just me." So
yeah, right. No, I am my own department, so I totally understand that. But it's just interesting. Great, that's great. And then, can you tell me what project graduation looks like?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, Trustee Guzman. So project graduation was led by our CCSD leadership. Superintendent Jara was involved with it as well. The last presentation touched on it a lot better than as far as my information is. But as far as I'm concerned, the way it worked is on weekends or sometimes after school, CCSD leadership, along with the engagement unit, they would go to different households, different students around the district, and just, you know, some who haven't returned since the pandemic, and just encourage them that, you know, them coming back to school isn't going to be scary, and that, you know, there are faculty and staff there for them. So I think them, you know, doing that frequently has definitely been beneficial to the students, and I'm sure that we're already seeing more students coming back as a result of it.
I just have one more question. What social media do you recommend that we utilize in our marketing?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, and Trustee Guzman. Obviously, Instagram. Instagram is the easiest. I think the easiest way for a lot of people to get their information. I think that's how we get our news. I mean, I don't watch the news, so we get our news from there. We follow our school's student council pages and whatnot pages to get involved in school and other things. So I would say Instagram. TikTok's also a big one. I think because, you know, random videos come up on your For You page and whatnot, and if a video from the district came up, I would kind of be interested to see like what they're talking about, go onto the page, follow it, keep up. So TikTok, Instagram, really anything but Facebook. Just because I think collectively no one really uses Facebook. So I'd say Twitter, Instagram, those types of things.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. Trustee Brooks?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the presentation. I am immensely grateful. You guys did an amazing job. I enjoyed coming to see you work. I appreciate the superintendent taking this on. I know this committee has evolved over the years, and it's evolved into something that I think is very useful and that I think really gives students agency. So I appreciate your honesty, even about Facebook. And I want to touch on the social media part because you talked about some platforms. What would an effective social media campaign look like on a platform for the district?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, and Trustee Brooks, thank you for that question. on Instagram, for example, posting graphics or information that isn't too wordy because our attention span's very short. So it's easy to click past things or like scroll past things. So information's kind of short, sweet, condensed, so that we can just get the point, like it, and then want to follow up with it. Same thing with, like, for example, if it was a Twitter post, not too wordy, just things that are easy to grab and easy to understand, easy to share with other people, because I might want to read a paragraph, but my friends might not want to read a whole paragraph. So being able to share my interests or wanting them to see the same thing might be a little hard. So just making it easy for everyone to understand and look at. That's it.
Thank you. And then just one follow-up question. It seems that you've touched on some of the issues that I think the district has struggled with historically, mainly inequities. Can you talk a little bit about how you came about noticing those and what your discussions were like as a group?
Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Jara, thank you for that question. In terms of inequities within schools, I feel like it is very noticeable even within the students. Oftentimes, students themselves have a variety of discussions amongst their classrooms and peers, discussing different issues that go on within their own schools. But as a council, we kind of just shared our experiences depending on different factors such as our race, religion, and different stuff that went into different inequalities that we ourselves faced.
Thank you, and great job. I appreciate your attendance and your engagement.
Thank you, Trustee Brooks. Trustee Cavazos.
Irene Bustamante is next. Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, students, for being here today. So good to see you back in the boardroom and also with your colleagues that are sitting in the audience. I just had a couple of quick questions here. What kinds of community events do you think would be the most successful? I noticed that came up a couple of times. I go to a lot of events at the schools, but I really want to get the students' perspective. What do you think would be the most successful for getting more engagement?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, Trustee Cavazos.
That's correct.
As far as community events, I think, honestly, school to school is the most productive. So students are able to connect, or families are able to connect directly with the administration at their school specifically. That's where they're going to be the closest to. So I think more on-campus activities and more on-campus events is going to be the most productive way to see the motivation and also to just involve the families in the most beneficial way. As far as community, I mean, like at parks or just any sort of like big, public areas are also very nice as well. I'm thinking about, involves everyone in the family. So I would also recommend parks as well for a location.
Thank you. Wonderful recommendations, and we are listening. My second question is just, you guys picked some pretty heavy lifts here, and as Trustee Brooks had said, things that we've been struggling with for a while. But being a therapist, of course, is zeroed right in on the mental health and the awareness and trying to attack that stigma, that students, families, et cetera, feel. So with your different conversations about mental health, I don't want to just limit it to that, equity and diversity, et cetera, what did you find to be, and you may not agree, so whatever you decide, what did you find to be your most challenging conversation on any of these topics? Because it sounds like you had some pretty deep discussions at a lot of these meetings.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, and Trustee Cavazos, thank you for that question. Obviously, all of these topics, like you said, were pretty hard and heavy topics, and then everything connects to chronic absenteeism. Mental health, we think, was the biggest because it's a really hard topic to talk about, like you mentioned, the stigma. It's not always discussed, so everyone's kind of scared or doesn't want to share their own experiences. And then we figured after discussion that a lot of us are the same, and that when we went back to our schools and shared this information with people in our schools, obviously being a higher school in our schools, we went back and shared, and we kind of figured that a lot of the people are on the same boat, and we want to have these discussions more openly in our schools, but we need somewhere to start, and obviously easing that in slowly and making it making it normal, like normalizing the topics would help with that.
Thank you so much, and I do want to say that on the meeting that I visited, I know that somebody did bring up, one of your colleagues did bring up, the efforts about suicide prevention, and really appreciate the work and the thought and the effort that you guys have put into this. So thank you again.
Trustee Bustamante Adams.
There. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I also like to express my gratitude for the students, but also to the staff, for having the vision to bring this back in a better form than it probably was before. So just want to express my gratitude. My question is, I've seen that your activity on this advisory council has spilled over to other things. For example, being involved in the legislative process and watching bills and learning how that process works so that you could have a voice at the table. My question is, from what I understand, every school gets to have a representative, but not every school sent an individual. So my question to you is, what could we do better to encourage the schools to participate in this advisory council?
Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Jara, Trustee Bustamante Adams, sorry. For the record, Jenna and Najad. In terms of nominating more people and getting more student involvement within schools, I would recommend sending the recommendation form to the students themselves. Even more than that, within our committee, it is mostly leaders. Even within us, we are mostly like in student council and other clubs and student body presidents and all of kind of taking on additional roles onto that. I feel like nominations from students themselves will kind of make the advisory itself, the council itself, more diverse, and will have more inputs, because I could easily say I am someone that attends schools often, so I might not know the reasonings behind someone who has different family circumstances that doesn't attend that school, and sending that out to also the parents, because a lot of people don't know about these opportunities, and a lot of the schools aren't aware of that, the fact that they could be sending students to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bustamante Adams. Trustee Williams, do you have any questions at this time? Okay.
No,
All right.
I'm okay. I just want to thank the students for coming here. I think that's really great. They're very well spoken, and I've been in these meetings with them as well, so they have really a lot of good ideas, and so I'm just really happy to be able to hear their presentation.
Thank you, Trustee Williams. Well, colleagues, I don't see any other questions in the queue at this time. We're incredibly proud of you, all of you, and those of you who are here, and those of you who are not here, your colleagues and peers who contributed to this presentation. Please keep up the good work. Looking forward to more great work coming from the Superintendent's Advisory Council. Have a great evening. Thank you for your work. All right, we are going to move on to item 4.02. Item 4.01 was not an action item, but 4.02 is an action item. So before I continue on this item, is there anyone who has not completed a public speaker card, however would like to provide public comment? If so, this is the moment in time to do that. Okay. We don't have any public speakers signed up in advance, so we are going to turn it over to Dr. Jara and open this item. Dr. Jara?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, I have the honor to, again, Dr. Mansell, our Chief Academic Officer, is here. Will be presenting the distance education plan that we normally do as part of our requirement, but I just wanted to tell you that I am really excited that we have two of our school leaders who came up and brought an idea on how to reconfigure their school building with a different structure, different calendar, not a different calendar, a different schedule to meet their individual needs of their kids, of their children, their school community. So thinking outside the box, When they both came to me, I said yes because of it's student-driven, student-centered. It is created by them and their staff. It's innovation at its best and giving choices for kids, for teachers. So I am just really, as a superintendent, really excited that they're here to present their model that hopefully and potentially we can replicate across the district once we see some time and get this thing going. So really excited and proud to have them here before us. Dr. Mansell.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara. For the record, Dustin Mansell. I am joined by Ryan Cordia, Principal, Northeast Career and Technical Academy, and Antonio Real, Principal of Western High School. Today, we are here to provide the proposed amendments to the Clark County School District 2022-2025 Distance Education Program. Nevada Revised Statutes 388.820 through 388.874 requires the Board of School Trustees of each school district seeking to provide a program of distance education to submit an application to the Nevada Department of Education. Most recently, the Board of School Trustees approved the current distance education program on April 28, 2022. I will begin by addressing the proposed amendments, then hand over the presentation to our principals. The proposed amendments of the Clark County School District 2022-2025 Distance Education Program include, in Section 1 through 5, the addition of Northeast Career and Technical Academy, Central Technical Training Academy, and Western High School as schools providing distance education and/or blended deliveries of instruction. In Section 1, the addition of schools may choose to use additional digital content resources as supplemental materials, but schools are responsible for aligning those materials to the standards, and the addition of calling out the appendix where we list the course names. In Section 2, the addition of the sentence, all comprehensive campuses have the option of using distance education programs for students who have been placed on suspension with instruction for disciplinary reasons. The addition of the sentence, according to the Clark County School District Code of Conduct, which is aligned to the Nevada Revised Statutes, NRS, students under mandatory expulsion recommendation will be excluded from using distance education as a temporary placement while under suspension with instruction. The addition of the sentence, forms inside the district's student information system, i.e. course plan and Infinite Campus, can also be used to meet this requirement. The addition of linking the Nevada Department of Education's Distance Education Handbook as a reference, and the removal of the sentence, distance education programs are utilized for students who prefer online hybrid learning and/or students in need of additional credits. In sections 2 through 4, the removal of the word Canvas and refer to the platform as our learning management system. And in section 3, the addition of a section on standard attendance related to Northeast Career Technical Academy and Nevada Learning Academy, a statement on virtual attendance related to Central Technical Training Academy, and a section on hybrid standard virtual attendance related to Western High School. At this time, I will hand over the presentation to Ryan Cordia, Principal of Northeast Career and Technical Academy.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, Ryan Cordia for the record. Just want to thank you for the opportunity to present our plan and thank this board for the foresight to put the school in North Las Vegas where we're going to open access to high skill work for a community that's a little overdue. So thank you very much. We're going to do some great work up there. What we're talking about today is our goal for the school. Okay. Our goal for the school is to make sure students have access to experiences and skills needed for an evolving economy through a blended learning model, moving students toward a workforce at an accelerated pace. Our tagline here is we're going to shorten the timeline from freshman orientation to revenue generation. And how we're doing this is we're looking at 5 basic core beliefs. First, we believe that all students learn at different rates. Second, we know teachers cause deep learning. Third, we know that students can use technology for some foundational skill building. Fourth, we know that success increases self-efficacy and joy. We're not going to let students fail. And finally, we think senior year should be a baton passed to life, and we're going to make sure senior year is the most relevant to the student's career path. How we're going to do this is based on a career tree model. Every student will select a job week 1 of freshman year. They can change their job at any point, but they will always be working towards a revenue generation source. These jobs will be tiered into 3 buckets. A tier 1 job or a tier 2 job could be satisfied with high school training in CTE or an industry credential. A tier 3 job would require a bachelor's degree to get access to that field. These are not income levels, these are barriers to entry. And the metaphor I like to use is a marine biologist would be a tier 3 job, and the person working on their boat would probably make 3 times the salary at a level 1 job. What we're going to do for core classes to allow our students to expedite the process to their job that they've selected is in our core classes, we'll use a blending learning model. The students will be self-paced. We'll use a traditional master schedule where they will be in a core class with a certified teacher. They will use APEX as a way to get core foundational skills. They will need to use a discourse model with the teacher to verify that they did learn those skills, and then they get access to a project-based learning task where they apply those skills. Once the student has demonstrated they can apply those foundational standards, they get access to the next unit. And students can work through those units as quickly as they can, or they can take time and we can add tier 2 and 3 supports to make sure there are no holes in their education and every student takes this class as long as it takes. On the other side of the house, our career tech ed and our elective courses will be on a traditional schedule where we'll do a spiral curriculum with experiential learning. The teacher will set the pace. The students will be grouped in 2 houses on campus based on career choices, and our curriculums will be aligned to those careers. And we believe in a 4-year career tech ed model so that our students leave competitive at high skill, high wage market. The blended learning model fits into our CCSD model of multi-tiered support system of supports. And the tier 1 structure is the model I explained where they do the APEX followed by the discourse followed by the application. And we'll apply tier 2 and 3 supports based on MAP scores, common formative assessments, and teacher observation. And the whole point of allowing students to choose their pace, and they choose their pace based on their ability to complete work. They can accelerate or slow down as needed for every course. If they're on an accelerated pathway to a level 3 job, which would require a degree, those students junior and senior year will take a lot of college classes to shorten the timeline to a college degree. The students who are working quickly towards a level 1 or 2 job will use senior year for industry credentials or work experience. If a student who is struggling, they will no longer fail courses, we will just add time to their schedule, and we can stretch 3 courses over 4 years and add more time to their schedule, so they will always be feeling successful as they progress through with our supports in the class. And a student on a traditional timeline who's taking the regular amount of time to complete a course will still have access to college courses and selected work experiences, just not as many minutes in the day as the accelerated students. And at this time, I'm happy to close my remarks and answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cordia. Is it okay, colleagues, if we hear from Mr. Rael before we dive in? Is that okay? Okay, thank you. Thank you for the smiles. I appreciate that. Just jump on in.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Hada, Antonio Rael for the record. I'm grateful to be here with you tonight. I must say quickly that I had 2 team members that were going to be here to present with me. A high school campus in May is a challenging thing to schedule all events, so they had to rush back for senior awards night. I'm hopeful I'm going to catch the tail end of it as well to do my presentation there. So I'll be riding solo and doing their parts, so I'll ask for your grace as well, because I did not rehearse the parts that they were going to speak on tonight. So we're really excited at Western High School. Just a little bit of context and background. I had the privilege of joining the leadership role at Western High School in June of 2020, so just about 3 years ago, in the heart of the pandemic and in the shutdown. So year 1 on the campus for me was all about survival and figuring out how we get through a school year. Last year, which is the first year really with the school community, with our teachers and with our students, we spent the year with a lot of great teacher leaders, with a great community of families, trying to figure out what it is that ailed Western High School. And we use the phrase continually, how could we reimagine Western High School post-pandemic? How could we think about the work differently overall? If you know Western High School, it's historic. There's great tradition, been there since 1960. However, in recent decades, not just years, Western has struggled to perform academically. So we came to the table and said, what are we going to do differently to meet the needs of our students in 2021, 22, 23, and going forward overall? So that really is the heartbeat behind our conversation. What you see before you on this next slide is the opportunities that we saw before us. I want to say this, despite the fact that Western High School has performed low academically, there is not a brilliance gap on our campus. There's an opportunity gap, and we seek to fill that gap to elevate our children to the highest level possible. So when we looked at an evolving schedule, new ideas, you see 5 bullet points before you. 1, I think we all recognize the workforce has changed, and we needed to change our approach to instructing children their daily schedule to match a changing workforce. 2, Superintendent Hada and his team have done a wonderful job of rolling out a PLC model that is going to impact academics and improve student outcomes. We need to figure out how to create the space to make that happen in a school day, which high school is very, very challenging to do. Our students who, again, have struggled academically, not because of lack of brilliance, because of lack of opportunity, we need to create the space in our schedule. Elementary schools have done this historically, but high schools have not, to remediate and accelerate children inside the school day without losing out on high-quality standards-based Tier 1 instruction. We also need to create the space for teachers to have professional learning in their contract day. And we want cross-curricular collaboration. We are the Lone CCSD pilot high school, something I'm proud to say to you. And we are a PBL school. We need to create the space for project-based learning collaboration. All of this takes time, which we try to figure out how do we solve the mystery of time on our campus. So the next piece. The image before you really captures how we have historically approached instruction at the high school level. It is a very linear flow, and logically so. Kids are expected to come in on day 1, take an algebra 1 classroom, start here. We have a pathway, a destination to end at that we need them to get to. And it's a very linear pathway to get there because you have high schools with 3,000 kids. You have teachers that have 200 plus children. It becomes really hard to differentiate from that schedule. The challenge is, as you've heard from my colleague here, the challenge, as we know well, not all children learn at the same pace. If each of the 6 of us have a project to do, we're going to accomplish that project at different paces. So while the linear plan is great in theory, it creates real challenges for implementation in keeping all children moving forward to that destination we want them to reach. So we actually think that the learning pathway looks a lot more like this, the spaghetti bowl, if you will. Where children, imagine we have a destination from here to Phoenix. Some kids get on the freeway in North Las Vegas, some in Boulder City, some maybe in Kingman. They all join the freeway at different times, but we need to get them to the same location. So it's a little bit more crazy. And the reality is, some kids need more restroom breaks. Some kids need opportunity to learn and circle back and get more opportunities to learn so they can stay on the pathway. The goal is, how do we get all kids to that end destination so that they can master those standards so they are ready to compete with kids from any school in any state, anywhere overall? So this is the model that we think, which looks a little bit crazy. And let me kind of explain now the exciting part of what we're going to do and the little bit crazy part, for which I am grateful that they allowed us to think a little crazy about how to approach this. So we are moving from a traditional 8-period block schedule to a 6-period schedule that will look on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, fairly traditional, 6 periods a day. We think this is advantageous because our kids will have more contact time with students. They'll actually get more time throughout the year, broken up in smaller sections that's probably helpful. So instead of 80 minutes a period, 52 minutes a period, but actually more minutes in a semester. But Wednesday is where the fun begins. And so let me kind of take us to that, the meat of our conversation. We have affectionately named this Warrior Opportunity Wednesday. And so all the things that I described on that opportunity slide is what we tried to build into one day. And so this entire schedule is built on a philosophy of earned privilege. That is, the more students succeed academically, the more privilege they have in flexibility on their schedule and classes they can take overall. So if you look at the pink box on the left-hand side of your screen, you can kind of see how this is broken down. So here's the crazy part of this. Not all students will be required to be on campus every Wednesday.
If we're going to have the opportunity to go in and remediate children, you can't remediate 3,000 children at one time. We need to be able to focus on the kids that need support immediately. So half of our campus, so block number 1, half of our campus, and you see it's broken down by departments, will be focused on this remediation acceleration piece. And what they will do is, in 3 periods of what we call warrior period, they will schedule in small groups of kids, class sizes of 20, and they will focus on that student's academic needs. And it may be that student needs support with math, support with science, or it may be that student needs to be accelerated and supported so they can reach advanced placement classes they haven't done previously, but they can absolutely accomplish. So you'll have 6 blocks of that throughout the day, 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. The other half of the teachers in the morning time who are not doing the warrior period blocks remediation, they will have the time to do PLCs, dive deeply into data, focus on their own professional learning plans, dive in and figure out how we provide classroom instruction that is different than the traditional, look at the data to create remediation plans for individual students so that we can target children on a high school campus. So then the second half of the day, they just flip-flop. The teachers that were doing remediation in the morning are now working on the PLCs and professional learning, and the others are now doing remediation. So we figured out how to get it into one day on Wednesdays. We still believe the majority of children will be on campus. Buses will run according to schedule. Lunch will be provided for every kid. Students that want to be on campus just for the purposes of working will have common spaces in the cafeteria and library with tutorial support moving around with them. And all students will have asynchronous instruction even if they don't actually have to be on campus. So we learned something from the COVID space, and we figured out how to do distance instruction on a comprehensive campus overall. So that's a very succinct picture of what that could look like. And then our last slide here looks at some of the unique things we believe we can do with this. I've mentioned a couple of them already. One is we have a goal in our Focus 2024 to move more children into advanced placement classes. We believe there is brilliance on our campus that's not yet been tapped into. We want to create advanced placement labs for our children so we can support them to reach those higher level classes. We have a campus with nearly 900 students who have language acquisition needs. We want to create an academic language academy on Wednesdays to provide them support on our very own campus so they can be there. We also know social emotional is important, so we want to create success circles and support with our Boys Town team and with our social workers, so that can happen on Wednesdays as well. And we also think it's a pretty powerful recruitment tool because we're creating the space for educators to be treated like professionals, where they can work on the professional learning, they can remediate children, they can collaborate with their colleagues. So we think we have something really special, but those are some of the opportunities that were presented in this Warrior Wednesday, this Opportunity Wednesday on our campus overall. So that's a really clear and concise version of that, but hopefully you will be excited as we are for this opportunity next school year.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, Dustin Mansell for the record. Thank you for this opportunity to share the proposed updates of the Clark County School District's 2022-2025 distance education program and to hear from our principals regarding their implementation for distance education delivery. And at this time, we'll pause and take questions from the board.
Thank you, gentlemen. Never imagined in a million years that a career tree and an image of a road would make me feel so overwhelmed with emotion. The idea of seeing the potential that exists in challenges that we've experienced as an entire system, right? An educational system, to see the opportunity gap realized through a shift, a mindset shift, a scheduling shift, which is no easy task, which is why I appreciate that investment that's taking place to really find creative solutions to the challenges that exist before us. So this is a memorable meeting already, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues before I continue to get teary-eyed about the opportunities in front of us. Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, Madam President. and I share that this is very memorable, that we have principals and students back with us here in the boardroom all on the same evening, and I think it's great. I also want to know what kind of vitamins that Principal Rael is taking. You need some of those. Had a couple of quick questions here, and also too, those pictures of the spaghetti bowl did not scare me. I've conquered that. So I think Principal Cordia, you had mentioned that. I wanted to get a little bit more information. I know that this is kind of overview. Students will not fail. They will get extended time. Did I hear you say that correctly? Can you expand on that just a little bit? I don't want to make Principal Rael, late to his senior awards.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, Trustee Cavazos. So what that looks like is if a student is on, say, Unit 8 of 10 in May, then they'll pick up on Unit 9 in August when they return to school. And then they can finish their, say, algebra course in October and begin their geometry course as soon as that unit is finished.
Okay.
And then we believe that with the Tier 2 and 3 supports, if we go slow in the beginning, we'll be able to go quick, and that student will be able to make up the second course by the end of that school year.
Okay. So in other words, there is like a framework for that extension. That's what you're saying. Thank you so much. And just a quick question for Principal Rael on creating the space. I'm a big fan of the project-based learning and collaboration. So is this going to be something that basically is teacher-based, site-based? How is that formulated?
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Hara, Trustee Cavazos, are you speaking specifically to the PBL component of it?
Yes, the PBL component.
Yeah, so we are in year 2 of implementation of PBL, so it's actually already on our campus. One of the challenges we have seen is project-based learning takes an intense amount of planning time amongst professional learning communities, amongst PLCs. And so what we strive to do is create the space for those PLCs to coordinate with other PLCs where there's very logical collaboration. For example, in some of our projects this year, we had our geometry team do a project on scaling walls. There was a very logical connection with our science department. We just didn't have the space and the schedule to allow that collaboration to happen. So we're creating the time for those two departments to have that same block of time on Wednesdays where they could get together in their PLCs and discuss how those projects could happen in 2 classes as opposed to just 1. So it is very much teacher-driven,
Right.
but our goal is to let the great professionals have the space to do the great work that they're capable of doing.
Okay, thank you so much. And just a quick comment that I think your Warrior Wednesday, I just love that. Can't wait to hear more about it and see how it's working out. And hopefully that maybe all the trustees can get out there and maybe observe some of that. But I think it sounds great. Thank you so much.
Trustee Guzman?
Thank you, and thank you for this presentation. This is great. I'm super excited as a former educator and a project-based teacher. I'm really excited about this because I never got a Warrior Wednesday. We did ours on Saturdays. So my question has to do with the timing. So was this something that you collaborated with your educators on? Is this something, I want to know how you figured out this schedule.
Go ahead, Mr. Rael.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the board, Trustee
Guzman.
Superintendent Hara, Trustee Guzman, I apologize, Guzman.
It's okay.
Yeah, so in that first year that I was at Western, the first year post-pandemic, we began to sit down in February of that year with my department leaders, teacher leaders, and take a look at the historic data at Western High School, the challenges we faced, and what we were learning from the pandemic overall. So from the time of February of that time through all of last year, so really, and into this year, so really almost 2 full years, we looked at this, we looked at several different ideas, we shared ideas with our region leadership about what we could do, and just kept coming back to the table. We've probably invested, over 100 hours of just thought time, looking at research. So it wasn't a quick and gradual, it was a very slow and steady. And then at one point in time, one of my co-presenters, I was hoping to be here, Ms. Mariani, one of our teacher leaders, said, what if we did something different on this day? And then we started to invest in that idea over and over. We met with our SOT, shared the ideas, talked to different students on our campus, and just invested significant intellectual capital on how to develop something completely different than we'd seen before to meet all of those needs we felt like were present. So it wasn't magic. The end looks pretty exciting, but it was a very methodical, intentional, time-intensive process process to get there until we had to the point of presentation with Dr. Hara and Dr. Larson Mitchell in March, of which I was overjoyed when they said yes.
That's awesome. And Mr. Cordia, is that right? Did I? Your career tree. Talk to me a little bit about that. How did you create that career tree and know that the different components would fit?
Mr. Cordia.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, and Trustee Guzman, Ryan Cordy for the record. So that is, none of these ideas are mine. I just take them on more from all a little bit. So that came from Mark Perna and his rethinking how schools should work. And so
Okay.
I took that idea of let's change school from my school to this is the student school. And if we're going to get you ready for life and be a productive member of our society, what do you want to do? And let's work on an ability scale and a passion scale and make sure you have at least a high skill job in an area you like until you find your passion where you can find your career. That was that idea landed with me that a level 1, 2, 3 job is something we can train for in high school. And then while they find their passion, their career will evolve as that comes forward.
Love that idea. Thank you so much. Thank you for this presentation.
All right, Trustee Bustamante Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, gentlemen, for thinking out of the box. And I'm grateful for your leadership on your campuses. And it's it doesn't surprise me, Mr. Cordia, that you were the #1 magnet school in the U.S. and now you're going to create something even better on the northeast side. So congratulations. My question is, how long will the pilot be? And what metrics are you going to use to come back and show us the results? And how often will we hear from you on
To a 5-day schedule. My goal and my commitment to both gentlemen is that this will succeed. The metrics will be obviously what we're seeing with SBAC, with ACT, with the student growth that we're seeing in all schools, their star rating. I believe with both gentlemen that we're going to see great things happening in the school. Now, moving forward, the conversation, obviously 3 years, we're going to look at and say, how do we expand it to more schools? That's my commitment. This is not going to be something, and I told both of them, both of our principals, I said, we're not going to start next year, okay, let's add more schools, right? We have to see it in action for 3 years and then expand to more schools. I need the right leaders because I think both of them, the process to get to where they are, the 100+ hours, teachers have to buy in. You can't do this to them. You have to buy in. Mr. Cordia is in a great setting because he's bringing everybody in. Dr. Rael is now with a staff. I love his process to get teachers to buy in. 2 years ago in the pilot with the PBL, Dr. Rael applied to be in that pilot, and part of that application included the teachers buying into that. So there's a lot of trust from from the teachers and the leadership. So the way I see it, I know you asked a quick question, but it's the way I see this, in 3 years, we're going to look, my goal is that this expands to more schools. Because when both were talking about recruiting, there's a couple of kids back there that are in our student advisory, they're like, hey, maybe my school on Wednesdays, I see their smiles. They're like, hey, maybe my school on Wednesdays can give me an asynchronous instruction. I think that's going to be where we're headed.
Thank you, Trustee Bustamante Adams. Trustee Brooks.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for your work on this, and I love your enthusiasm. It's nice to see. I'm grateful for your willingness to take a shared pain from the community and turn it into opportunity. I'm pretty sure that's what evoked the tears of my peer here. My question, my question is, it sounds like you have buy-in from the teachers, right? Everyone's on board. What does recruitment look like for students, and then how do they apply? Either, both.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Jara, and Trustee Brooks. So I just saw an article before I came over here that our school is top 10 in magnet recruitment, so we don't even exist yet. So the energy is high in North Las Vegas for this school and for career tech ed. And so I know that we've got to a point now where we're turning away a couple hundred kids, which hurts my heart, but it's also warms my heart that there is demand for high skill work training. After this meeting, I'm sure I'll be getting some parent phone calls because they have not heard about this yet. But all teachers were hired under this idea. So our instructional staff is aware, they're on board, and we've been meeting with them monthly to figure this out together.
Mr. Rao.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Hara, Trustee Brooks. So we don't have the opportunity to recruit students onto our campus. But the reality is one of our primary goals is to change the perception of what has been Western High School, so people in our community realize the brilliance and excellence that sits inside of those walls. And really, one of my goals is contrary to my colleagues, and I want to keep them at Western High School and not send them to the Northeast Career Tech School, right? So our recruitment numbers, and we're already a good-sized high school, close to 3,000, but we hope to keep some of those great kids in our campus when they see the opportunities before them, that they can excel in their very own home school.
Thank you. Trustee Williams, do you have any questions at this time?
No, I don't. Thank you so much.
All right, colleagues, I don't see any other questions at this time. That means that we have asked everything that we need to know. Thank you, Mr. Cordia. Thank you, Mr. Rael. Thank you, Dr. Mansell. This is is it an action item? It is an action item. Sorry, come back. Don't leave yet. I was excited about having you head out. Yeah, okay. We're gonna. Yes, thank you for reading my mind. I appreciate it. Yes, for senior night. Thank you. Thank you for tonight. All right, we're going to move on to public comment. Thank you so much, Dr. Dar. I appreciate that. Did I say that there is public comment on this item? There is no public comment. There is no public comment at this time for item 4.02. This means I'm looking for a motion, colleagues. Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to, I guess this would be to approve the amendment to the Clark County School District 2022-2025 Distance Education Program.
Thank you, Trustee Cavazos. Trustee Brooks.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Brooks. Colleagues, I have a motion by Trustee Cavazos and a second by Trustee Brooks. Please cast your vote. Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Thank you. Colleagues, that motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Dr. Mansell. Thank you. What an encouraging meeting, and especially off the heels of an extraordinary event last night. Let's continue the inspiration with item 4.03, public hearing on and possible approval of the new memorandum of agreement between the Clark County School District and the Education Support Employees Association regarding the reclassification of the position of campus security monitors. Mr. Hall, welcome.
Thank you.
Forgive me, Mr. Hall. I'm sorry. I'm on cloud inspiration here and forgot that this is an action item. So I'm going, before we officially open it, want to make sure that anybody who has not submitted a yellow card for this item for public comment to please do so now. It appears we may already have yellow cards, and we have some individuals who've signed up in advance. Mr. Hall, take it away.
Nevada Revised Statute 288.153 requires that any new, extended, or modified collective bargaining agreement between a local government employer and an employee organization be approved by the governing body of the local government employer at a public hearing, and that the chief executive officer of the local government report to the local government the fiscal impact of the agreement. The Board of Trustees of the Clark County School District, or CCSD, approved a negotiated agreement with the Education Support Employees Association, or ESEA. An agreement has been reached pending the approval of the Board of Trustees and the Superintendent of Schools regarding a memorandum of agreement between CCSD and ESEA regarding the reclassification of the position of Campus Security Monitor from salary range 44 to salary range 52. ESEA and CCSD drafted a new memorandum of agreement which reclassifies the position of Campus Security Monitor. The terms of this agreement will be effective prospectively from the date of approval and signature. There are additional costs in the amount of approximately $4 million associated with entering into this memorandum of agreement. This is the time and place to conduct a public hearing on, discussion of, and possible action on approval of the new memorandum of agreement between CCSD and ESEA regarding reclassifying the position of Campus Security Monitor.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Is there any discussion by the board at this time? Seeing none, I'm going to turn it over to public comment. We have Jan Giles, Autumn Tampa, and Anthony Boone III.
Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent Jara, Trustees, Jan Giles, ESEA President, for the record. This evening, I'm speaking in support of the Campus Security Monitor reclassification MOA. ESEA would like to thank the Compensation Department team, Superintendent Jara, CFO Gowdy, and David Hall for negotiating this MOA. As you've already heard tonight from your team, students cannot focus on learning if they don't feel safe in schools. Every day, our support professionals are asked to keep campuses safe and secure for our students. The CSMs are the first line of protection on campuses against weapons, drugs, and fights. This is a well-deserved and long overdue increase. There have been difficulties in recruiting and retaining employees in this position due to the low salary. Now, with the salary wage being competitive in this field, the hope is this will help fill all CSM vacancies to ensure students and staff feel safe in schools. What happened this week to the CSM at Von Tobel Middle School was tragic. While we can't prevent a stray bullet coming from a surrounding area of a school, we can definitely be prepared if there is a random act of violence on our campus. CSMs are dedicated to keeping students and staff safe. Some CSMs had joined me in support of the MOA this evening, but they had to leave, so I apologize for that. Along with this reclassification, CSMs are requesting additional training, equipment, and appropriate communication channels for emergencies. In today's climate, we also believe the district could benefit by convening a safety committee to address ongoing issues. This committee could consist of members from all bargaining units, Metro, parents, and students. ESEA and our members are committed to our students' learning, safety, and health. We ask that you vote yes on this agreement. Thank you. And I can also let you know Autumn and Anthony Boone are not here.
Thank you, Ms. Giles. Thank you for your public comment. I don't see any other public comment, any other individuals who signed up for this item. So the public hearing is now closed. Okay. All right, colleagues, I think we need to go ahead and turn it over to Trustee Guzman.
Linda, I have to. That's okay. Thank you, President Garcia Morales. Before we vote, I wanted to let you know that I need to abstain because I work for the Nevada State Education Association and ESEA is a part of our organization.
Thank you very much, Trustee Guzman. All right, colleagues, at this time, I am seeking a motion. Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, Madam President, and Trustee Guzman, my apologies. I apologize. At this time, I'd like to make a motion, but I'd also like to add that, this has been a long time, I think, coming. And I just want to mention that the name of this job description, Campus Security Monitor, there's so much that goes into that. And as a former high school teacher and parent of 5 children that by hook or crook made it through CCSD, the Campus Security Monitor is not only somebody that's important to the kids, but also important to the teachers, the other support professionals, and kind of like a first responder. So I just wanted to make that statement and support as I make this motion. And the motion specifically is to approve item 4.03, the possible approval of the new memorandum of agreement between the Clark County School District and the Education Support Employees Association regarding reclassification of the position of Campus Security Monitor, and very proud to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Cavazos. Trustee Brooks?
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to second that motion.
Thank you, Trustee Brooks. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Cavazos and a second by Trustee Brooks. Please cast your vote. Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, we have, that motion passes. We have 5 ayes and 1 abstention. Congratulations. Thank you very much, Mr. Hall. All right. I said we're going to keep the inspiration going. We must keep shining the light on the great work that's happening in our district, including the incredible work that is happening on behalf of the district through our legislative staff. I'm going to go ahead and open up item 4.04. This item is not an action item. Mr. Story, welcome.
Yes, hi. Thank you, President Garcia Morales, Trustees, Superintendent Jara, Todd Story, Chief Communications Officer. For the record, we are pleased to be here this evening to give you the latest update on the ongoings of the Nevada legislature. The last time that we sat here to report, we had 172 bills that we were tracking. We're now at about 107. So it's making it a little bit easier for the team in Carson City. But before we jump into the details, I just wanted to remind anyone who might be watching and is interested that we do have a newsletter that goes out every other week, and we would encourage the community to subscribe. They can do that by calling the Government Relations Office at 702-799-1080 or emailing us at governmentrelations@nv.ccsd.net. That is a list that is open. You opt in. We provide you updates to the work that is ongoing by the team in Carson City, and it includes the bills that we are supporting and opposing as well. So if you share that information, we would love to have additional subscribers, and they can get those updates regularly from us. So with that, I am happy to introduce Mr. Nathan Waugh, who has joined the team since the last time we were here. He is also a product of the Clark County School District, like myself and Ms. Haddad. So we are very happy to represent the district in all things government relations and in this community. So I will turn it over to Mr. Waugh, and he can provide you an update, and then Ms. Haddad will give you the specifics according to the actual pieces of legislation.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President, Trustees, and Superintendent Jara. For the record, my name is Nathaniel Waugh. I'm the Government Relations Coordinator for the district. I want to begin by thanking Superintendent Jara, Mr. Story, and Ms. Haddad for giving me the opportunity to rejoin the CCSD family in this role and be part of the advocacy work in Carson City this session and beyond after the session on behalf of the district, our students, our teachers, and the communities we serve. So just to give you kind of a high-level look of where we are in the session, we have 25 days left. The kind of big happenings that this week, the final kind of closing for the pupil-centered funding plan occurred this week, and the total education investment for this biennium is $11.5 billion. This represents a 26% increase in education funding over the previous biennium. And we're certainly grateful to the governor and the legislature for recommending this unprecedented plan. I know the word historic has gone around a lot up there to bring more parity, to give teachers the tools to teach, students the tools to learn, and achieve at levels that we've never seen before in Nevada history. For CCSD, what this represents is for fiscal year 24, it's about $3.498 billion, and for fiscal year 25 is $3.650 billion. Part of this recommendation also included changing the weights for various categories, and what we see in that is for English language learners, the weights are going from 0.23 to 0.45. For at-risk pupils, from 0.03 to 0.35. And keeping in mind the one caveat with that is with the new definition for free and reduced lunch, we see the numbers of students statewide who are eligible for at-risk going from 247,286 for fiscal year 23 down to 63,325, and that's statewide. And then for gifted and talented pupils, it's remaining at 0.12. In real terms, this represents an average per pupil expenditure above and beyond the base per pupil funding of $4,298 for English learners, $2,578 for at-risk students, and $1,031 for gifted and talented students in fiscal year 24. And for fiscal year 25, it's $4,511 for English learners, $2,706 for at-risk, and $1,082 for gifted and talented. Some upcoming deadlines that we're looking at is Friday, May 19th is the deadline for committee passage in the second house. So anything that made it out of the first house has to go through committee, basically started that process all over again. So the deadline for all those bills that made it over is May 19th. The deadline for second house passage is going to be May 26th, so anything that gets out of committee. Wednesday, May 31st is when the budget bills have to be introduced and exempt bills from committee. And of course, Monday, June 5th is the day that so many people are waiting for, which is going to be adjournment of the session. And where we're at with a majority of the bills that we're tracking that Mr. Story referenced is there's 100 plus bills each in the Ways and Means and Senate Finance committees. And both of these committees are beginning their work to go through those bills to meet those deadlines. So I'll pass the baton over to our director, Patricia Haddad, to kind of go into details into the bills.
Thank you so much, Mr. Waugh. This is Patricia Haddad for the record. Just going to run through some bills that we're watching on the support side and as well as opposition, as well as give a quick update on the status of CCSD's bills. So starting there, SB 47, which looked at the NRS provisions related to teacherages, as well as looking at the, capping the, total amount for licensure fees. And that is currently in Senate Finance. We are awaiting scheduling on that. But then unfortunately, Senate Bill 65, which looked at doubling the amount of training for members of boards of trustees, as well as requiring background checks, did not make it past the deadline and will not be moving forward this legislative session. In addition to that, I'm going to move on to some of our bills that we're supporting. You've heard some of these, but there's a couple of new ones in here from our last presentation. So I'll start with AB 347, which is a $15 million appropriation for grants to support dual credit programs. That one has not yet been heard, but we're looking forward to that hearing and are working with the bill sponsor on that bill. In addition to that, we are supportive of Senate Bill 294, which is revising provisions relating to the safe storage of firearms. AB 400, which is sort of the governor's omnibus education bill. We are supporting the provisions that enhance public education in particular. SB 322, which revises provisions related to reckless driving. more fondly known as Rex's Law, and that has to do directly with school zones, reckless driving in school zones in particular. Supporting that, AB 185, which is revising provisions governing the education of pupils who are children of military personnel. AB 256, which revises provisions related to work-based learning programs and background checks in particular. And SB 292, revising provisions related to school administrators. And that one was heard again in the second house just earlier this week. In opposition, we've got a couple there. So AB 175, of course, has to do with appointing municipalities appointing members to the Board of Trustees. We are in strong opposition to that and are grateful to our partners with NASB, the Nevada Association of School Boards, the Nevada Association of School Superintendents, and other advocates in standing in opposition with us on that bill. In addition to that, Senate Bill 344, which revises provisions governing education, that has a number of different components to it, and that was heard earlier today in the second house. Senate Bill 282, which has to do with subsidies for substitute teachers. Senate Bill 340, which revises provisions governing education and specifically puts some mandates on summer school. And then AB 207, also in opposition to that, which is also looking at revising provisions governing work-based learning programs. And specifically, we're in opposition to the amendment that was brought forth, that we are in support of the original language. So that is a quick run through of sort of high level, a number of the bills that we're watching. Of course, as Mr. Story indicated, there's still 100 plus that we're watching through this process. And in addition to that, we are still seeing bills dropping and as well as appropriation bills that are coming through. So that is continuously in flux. The only other thing that I will add is that it has been wonderful over the past few weeks having Mr. Waugh join us up in Carson City and providing incredible support. And we're very excited about his commitment to this work and the additional capacity, and are looking forward to getting through the next 25 days and hopefully getting some good outcomes from the legislative session for kids and for educators in our overall CCSD community. So with that, I will close out and happy to answer any questions from here. Thank you.
Madam President, Trustees, Superintendent Jara, we are available for any questions that you might have about what we've discussed or any other thoughts or questions you might have on your minds.
Thank you, Mr. Story. I'll go ahead and start while my colleagues get in the queue. A question for Ms. Haddad. I missed, could you remind us, could you go over the summer school? What number was that? And the amendment or the workforce, the opposition, both on opposition, summer school, and then there was a piece around workforce and the amendment regarding that bill. I don't remember, I didn't catch those numbers.
Certainly, this is Patricia Haddad. Thank you, President Garcia Morales. So Senate Bill 340 is the one that deals with summer school. And, you know, in particular, of course, we agree that academic achievement of students is of the utmost urgency, and ensuring that each student has the opportunity to make academic gains this summer is a priority. But of course, CCSD already has extensive plans for 2023 summer acceleration. And what this particular bill mandated was a plan no later than 30 days after the bill was passed for this coming summer. And for us in particular, that means that our summer acceleration would be over at that time. There are also some particulars around fulfilling the targeting of particular students. There's some clarity that, you know, needs to be sought out as far as the language that's provided in there, as far as, and in addition to that, reporting requirements. And so ensuring that, you know, we are implementing the current summer school plans with fidelity, but recognizing that this would create an additional layer on top of work that's already been planned, negotiated through collective bargaining units, and is ready to go for student registration, and of course shortly here will be kicked off. And so again, I would just emphasize that the opposition is certainly not towards the concept of summer school, but some of the challenges related to the mechanics in how the bill was articulated.
Ms. Haddad, question around that, SB 340. Is it an unfunded mandate?
Yes, ma'am. So what we know is that with our ESSER dollars funding this year's summer acceleration, and those dollars will fall off, with the expiration of the use of those funds. And in order to fulfill the requirements in the bill, we have a fiscal note of $60 million, and this legislation does not have any funding attached to it. That's correct. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that for me. And then could you, the last one that I had was the opposition to the amendment of, it was after SB 340 regarding workforce?
Yes, ma'am. AB 207. So as originally drafted, AB 207 provided for the opportunity for school districts to purchase insurance for liability insurance for work-based learning. And the initial intent was in order to make work-based learning more appealing for businesses. Unfortunately, an amendment was put forth that we believe, with the amendment included in that language would actually have, the opposite effect around being more appealing to businesses. So that original language provided immunity from civil liability for failure to obtain coverage or obtain a specific amount of coverage at sites outside of the jurisdiction of the school district. But without that original provision, the amended bill, like I said, will likely result in districts reducing or eliminating work-based learning opportunities in most of the state, and therefore Clark County School District has been standing in opposition to that end. And so we have been in communication regularly with the bill sponsor to see if there is any way we can, move this bill forward as it originally written, and are hopeful that, we can continue those conversations. But at this time, it does not seem that that amendment will be taken.
Thank you very much, Ms. Haddad. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues. Trustee Guzman.
Thank you, President Garcia Morales. Ms. Haddad, I think I missed the bill number for the school zones. Can you help me with that, please?
Yes, ma'am. Patricia Haddad. So SB 322 is Rex's law, which deals with reckless driving specifically in school zones. I'm not sure if you remember Rex Patchett, who was tragically killed by a reckless driver out front of Mannion Middle School. And what this bill looks at is the consequences for reckless driving, specifically in school zones where we know that kids and pedestrians are most vulnerable.
Thank you. And then I just have a quick question again about summer school. I hate to beat this, but have we had conversations with Senator Dondera-Loop about it?
Thank you, Patricia Haddad. We have had conversations with Senator Dondera-Loop in requesting some amendments. There was also just some quick follow-up after the most previous bill hearing. I think there was some discussion that we're trying to get a little bit more information on as far as the clarity around sort of how many schools. Are we talking about all schools that would be required to have these particular targeting and these particular program types, or just one, and sort of what that fulfillment looks like. I think we walked away from that hearing with a little less clarity than we had walking into it. So the senator previously had, like I said, we did propose some amendments, and at this point they have not been accepted, but there are additional conversations that need to occur in relation to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, Madam President. I just have a couple here. Ms. Haddad, thank you so much. On the supporting side, I missed a number between 294 on the revisions on the safe storage of firearms and SB, I think it was 322. What was the number in between in the bill, in between those two that we are supporting?
Yes, ma'am. So Assembly Bill 400, which is the governor's bill related to education. Now, of course, there are many provisions in that bill. It deals with a number of different topics in relation to education. Specifically, we are supportive of just a couple of provisions around the teacher pipeline, as well as literacy improvements, and but recognizing that there are a number of different components in there that I think are counter to our public education focus. But that said, recognizing that we're also seeing, an unprecedented increase in our total funding, and that these are also, of course, dynamic processes. So we are awaiting to see, what some additional amendments may look like, and are very heartened by the continued conversations that are occurring amongst committee members in relation to this legislation and sort of how it's continuing to develop.
Thank you, Ms. Haddad, for elaborating on the parts of the bill that we are particularly supportive of. That is very helpful. And I had one other one in opposition after AB 175, and then I think the bill 282 on subs. There was another bill in between there. I'm not sure if you said it was 342, 344. I didn't catch it.
Thank you. Yes, Senate Bill 344.
All right, could you tell me, I didn't catch anything on that, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, I apologize. And I'm sorry, Patricia Haddad. So SB 344 has again, this is a bill that has a couple of different provisions relating to different things for public schools and for districts. There is a section in there impacting open meeting law, and particularly creating some new rules around public comment. Our opposition has to do specifically with some language in there around boards not being able to impede or interfere with public comment, and our critique is that it is sort of a broad and undefined terminology, so we want to ensure that gets clarified. In addition to that, there's a provision for additional financial audits. And of course, CCSD, as you all know, is subject already to extensive auditing requirements. And so this would create additional administrative burdens, and that would not be funded. There are some additional provisions in there related to performance evaluation requirements for both superintendents and school associate superintendents that have to do with demonstrating a mastery of laws and policies that have been passed over the past 10 or 5 years as a component of a performance evaluation. And then finally, there's a provision in there that is in relation to leave, administrative leave for employees of public and private businesses, and it looks a little bit different in the language, but particularly that leave so that families may engage with their students on, for example, parent-teacher conferences or other school functions. And so, I think we also have some questions on that piece around just how that might be verified and sort of what the implementation look like, because it is also paid leave in that time.
Thank you, Ms. Haddad. Thank you for your detailed explanation. That helps a lot. And if I may ask, who is the sponsor of that bill?
Senator Neal is the sponsor of that bill.
All right, thank you very much. And I did have questions on the summer school bill, but my colleagues asked the questions and you've already adequately answered them. So thank you very much.
Trustee Brooks?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want a reminder, does the state provide per pupil funding for summer school enrollments? Are those funded school days?
Madam President, Trustees, Superintendent Jara, Todd Story, for the record, they do not. We are currently funding and have been funding those programs with ESSER dollars. I think Ms. Haddad touched on that. I think the easy way to think about this is that if we were to be subjected to this unfunded mandate, we would be expected to provide 10, 11 months worth of schooling with funding for only 9.
I think that's the part that I think is getting lost in the narrative, because I do think that there is a narrative here that we just don't want kids to go to summer school. The problem is the state is not paying for summer school. If they'd like to pay for summer school, then perhaps we would meet some of these reports, but they don't. And I guess it's very confusing to me. It's confusing legislation to me because of the fact that they don't pay for summer school. I don't have a question. That's just putting it in the universe.
Dr. Jara?
Madam President, members of the board, Trustee Brooks, if you recall, prior to the federal dollars, our children paid for summer school when they wanted to come to summer school. So I agree with you. I'm at a loss as to why the legislature would be passing a funding or a bill around summer school when it's not funded. It hasn't been funded. Our children are paying for it, and our schools are trying to do the best they can. So I agree with you. Wanted to make sure that's on the record.
Thank you, Dr. Jara. Trustee Bustamante Adams?
Thank you, Madam President. In your opening comments, you talked about per pupil funding. My question is, so was there an increase in education funding? I believe that there was. And what was that increase from the projected? Number two is, for us here in Clark County, even though we have an increase in education funding, what is still the gap? What is the amount that we're still lacking? Because we haven't funded education adequately in the state. But even if we have an increase in the projected, what is still the gap that we have in Clark County? And then my last question is on SB 175. It had a fiscal note, but a very small one. And so was there, did we provide more information to reflect an accurate fiscal note for SB 175?
Madam President, Trustee Superintendent Jara, Todd Story for the record, and certainly Ms. Haddad and Mr. Waugh can jump in here. But going to specifically the funding for the pupil-centered funding plan, I think it was mentioned earlier that it amounts to a 26% increase. What we're seeing is $11.5 billion that was recommended this week in the committee over the biennium. But that still, if I heard your question correctly, does not get us to average nationally. I don't know what the total amount. We haven't done the breakdown by pupil at this point to determine what those exact numbers were. We in Clark County would see an increase over what was proposed by the governor with the $2 billion increase. We would see more money than was actually projected and proposed at that time. So we are grateful for the additional funding that would come to the school district. We would have to do some further analysis to determine exactly where it puts us in relation to the national average.
Madam President, members of the board, just to follow up, I believe the number from the proposed budget, the original proposed budget was about a $2,100 increase per student, which still puts us about 2,000 or so below the national average. Our CFO will be presenting our budget next week with new numbers that just came up, as you recall from the Economic Forum. So there may be some, if we have the numbers projected, there has been an increase, but it's not optimal and it's not to the national average.
What about SB 175? Did we provide additional information on the fiscal note?
Patricia Haddad, for the record, if it's okay that I jump in. So thank you. Yes, so revising our fiscal notes is something that we are working on. I had a conversation with some folks in our budget and finance team earlier today as well. At SB 175, submitting an additional, an updated fiscal note on that is one of the things that is sort of on that inventory for us to work on. And we will get that in shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. It looks, oh, Trustee Bustamante Adams, are you good? Okay. I just have to share that earlier, as we hear about the incredible innovation that's taking place in our school district through the presentation we just had a minute ago, the investments that we've made in our support professionals. The Starlight Awards took place last night. There's a lot of great work that's happening in the district, and it is my aspiration, my hope that leaders in our community who make decisions about the schools, our education system, are really committed to ensuring if they pass bills that they are funded and not that they are funded and they come with resources to help us implement them successfully at all levels, no matter what they are, especially if there are requirements coming from the state. And ultimately, I'm really grateful for the advocacy that's taking place, for the work on the legislative committee team. Thank you, Dr. Jara, and your staff for continuing to advocate for resources to help us continue the incredible innovation that's taking place in our school district. Dr. Jara?
Madam President, members of the board, I just want to be brief. I forgot to mention this last time. In our newsletter, in our communication, one of the things that we need to think about post-legislative session, just to start thinking about our goal is our hope that we will then present the bills that make it through and pass. We'll invite legislators that pass the bills and sponsor to come back and into this community and kind of talk about what that impact is to student achievement. I think when we talk about accountability, it's a two-way accountability. So just think about in the future after session so we can have discussions with our community about the bills that make it through, how it impacts students. So something to process. Thank you.
Looking forward to those discussions. Thank you so much for your time today. Ms. Haddad, thank you again. Oh, it looks like, forgive me, I want to. Trustee Cavazos, go ahead.
I just wanted to commend our legislative team and also Ms. Haddad for trying to get through all of our questions and answering everything. And I know that we're all looking forward to the magic date of June 5th, magical day. I just wonder if maybe like in the future, so it wouldn't be so hard on our staff, that maybe that we could get some kind of like spreadsheet, so it's like support, opposition, maybe some like explanations, because I know she was trying her best, their long distance, and for you guys to answer too. So just something to throw out there and maybe be a little bit, a little bit easier on our staff. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for the incredible work. Appreciate it. I think we are set now. You may be dismissed. All right, colleagues, we're going to move on. All right, we're going to move on to item 5.01. That's public comment on items not listed on as action items on the agenda. Before I continue with this item, if anybody in the audience who would like to speak but has not signed up in advance or submitted a yellow card, I would urge you to please do so now, because we will, once we start, we will not accept yellow cards. All right, we're going to start with Mr. Bayless, followed by Ernest Mackey, Ernest Mackey, and Autumn Tampa. Nope, not Autumn Tampa, Jacqueline Ibarra.
Hello, ladies of the board, Mr. Jura, James Bayless for the record. So my topic is E and safety. The package you guys received, what if I told you Brian Burrell, Gerald Bustamante, Miss Cortez, the lady that we've been speaking about, and Miss Inglets from Foothill, the IEP coordinator. You know what all 5 of those people have in common? No schooling to be dealing with special needs children. Are you aware that I've actually been doing background checks on everybody pertinent to the SPED program and finding each person that's not qualified to be even touching a SPED child, much less being around one. And just because according to your guys' budget, there is funding for the summer school. It's in the SPED program. The SPED program is actually government mandated for that. So there is some funding for the summer school program. You just guys seem to not use it for it. So with the situation at hand in that packet, you will read a lot of situation, and you'll see the screenshot of Ms. Cortez trying to delete my box. If you'll read in there, that you'll see something from 2018, 2019. That was for Antoine Moore. That was something that your school system said didn't exist. One of the files, one of the many files. Ironically, after I addressed Ms. Cortez and her many frivolous things she's been doing, did you know my son's school ID number changed? Which is weird since he's had the same one since he's been in school. But miraculously, his student ID number changed, which is weird because that's supposed to stick with him until he's done with school. But it did. They tried to send them to Del Sol, which is a 2-star school, and most people in the veteran community call it Baghdad of CCSD, because you have guys have more gunplay there than you see in Beirut. So with the situation at hand, and this goes to my trustee, with all the situation at hand and everything going on, I got word through my grapevines. A certain individual, I guess we're not allowed to mention names. You should know who I'm referring to. They're planning on planting the whole situation on you. You remember that paper I brought to the hierarchy? You would be the it, wouldn't be him. AK, everything that happened to Basic, planning on putting on you. Have a good day.
Is Ernest Mackey here? After Ernest, we're going to hear from Jacqueline Ibarra. Is Jacqueline here? After Mr. Ernest, you'll go. And then after Mr. Ernest, we'll have, after Jacqueline Ibarra, we'll have Caitlin Fisk, Ashley Cotino, and Michael Parra. Welcome.
Good evening, Board.
Mr. Mackey, could you bring the microphone closer to you? Thank you.
My name is Ernest Mackey. Speaking on case number 5004H53692. Safe. After I had that last stand-up speech a few weeks ago, my daughter retaliated again, pulled out of the classroom, tried to retaliate, accusing her of making threats, wasn't out. And then we called Superintendent, Ms. Dana, send message over to investigate for certain people not to be involved. They were sitting in the office saying that she needs to do a report, my daughter, Leah, for them. This needs to stop. She's not going to do their work for them. And when Ms. Dana said for no one else to be involved, but the person she pointed out, there was a person who was involved telling Mr. Littles she need to do that report today because it was due yesterday. Something they should have pulled my daughter out of class. Like the 4 young people who were speaking earlier today, young adults. They did mention it's probably the teacher. I agree. I've dealt with the schools many times, Colorado, Texas, here in Nevada. I went after your superintendent, Nevada, in our county, got him removed. Got quite a few people removed. pulled me out my house. Nothing don't be done about it this time. And then I also called Mr. Jar office. They refused to set an appointment or schedule me to talk. I can see it's coming from the top on down. This need to stop. Said it last time. It's the second time I'm saying it again. I'm coming after. Mark my words.
We're going to go ahead and move on to Ms. Ibarra.
Good evening, Board President Morales, members of the board, and Superintendent Jara and the community. My name is Jacqueline Ibarra. I am a parent of 2 students at Harley Harmon Elementary. I am here tonight to address my concerns about equity and justice for all students at Harley Harmon. My son has been suspended 5 times since the spring semester of 22 for behavior that demonstrates he needs extra support, not time out of school. He is on a 504 plan and struggles with reading and math. He has an absentee father and he experiences big emotions. He is bigger than most students in his grade and he is loud. He, like most students and most kids, wants and needs to be seen and heard. He also needs and wants acceptance and love. He has been bullied by other students at Harley Harmon since he enrolled in the fall of 2021. And in the spring semester of 2022, he was bullied and threatened and chased by another student's parents while he was walking home with his little sister. A nearby parent heard and intervened. When this was brought to the attention of the principal, she refused to get involved and stated that she had no authority over incidents off school ground. My son's latest suspension, May 8th, is the result of him being present as another boy and his sister were walking home and was bullied and assaulted by the other boy. My son has had negative experiences with the boy who approached them, so he walked ahead to avoid him. He was walking so fast that his little sister couldn't keep up. They turned around to see what happened, and they heard the boy that had been walking with a cry out in pain. They saw him on the ground, and he was complaining that his finger hurt. The principal then later pulled my children out of class to be interrogated the next day with them along with the other students who were there. The incident occurred a block and a half away from the school. My son has been suspended for 4 days and then in-house suspension for the rest of the school year. That is 11 days too many instructional minutes for any student to miss, especially a student who struggles in reading and math and social emotional development. My son is receiving counseling through Hazel Health. He has shared his feelings about the way the principal treats him and prompted the counselor to address the issue with the principal. The principal has mentioned to me in one of our conversations and seemed angry about it. I believe the principal is taking things personally and targeting my son. My son is not being treated equitably, and he doesn't feel safe at school. I'm asking the board and the superintendent to investigate this matter and to be able to get my son back in the classroom so that he can get the education that he is entitled to. And
go ahead and finish your last sentence thought, Ms. Ibarra.
Okay, and then to quote Dr. Jara, that each student only has one shot at school, and my son is being excluded from learning at Harley.
Thank you, Ms. Ibarra. Caitlin Fisk, Ashley Cotino, Michael Parra.
Good evening, trustees and Dr. Jara. My name is Caitlin Fisk, and I'm a junior at Shadow Ridge High School. Thank you so much for having me here and for being willing to listen. I attended a board meeting in April regarding the GPA cap that was placed this year without the permission of the students. Trustees, I would again like to stress the importance of this matter to me. This GPA cap completely devalues the title of valedictorian, and it becomes something that dozens of students may gain through chance instead of something that a student has to strive for. In fact, several of my peers have recently checked their GPAs and with the cap in mind, said that they had no idea being valedictorian was so easy. In creating this GPA cap, the level of expected achievement for your students is lowered, and the honor and prestige that come with being valedictorian is gone. This cap also greatly reduces our chances of being accepted into prestigious universities, as it takes away the advantage of a high GPA, especially since standardized tests are becoming less and less important as the years go by. What good does this cap really do? Because it certainly does not improve mental health, nor does it reduce student stress. For me, all it accomplishes is discouraging CCSD's top students from challenging themselves in preparation to attend top universities. It also essentially invalidates the hard work that I, as a junior, and other juniors have already put into our academics during our first 3 years of high school. As the CCSD Board of Trustees, your job is to help us students succeed and excel in our future. Part of doing that is listening to our academic needs and acting on them. So here's mine. The trustees that voted for the GPA cap, I will be frank with you, your vote goes against the will of mine and many other students. As such, I need you to take action and put the GPA cap back on the agenda for a revote. And during that revote, I need you to remember me and all of the other students who feel like they don't have the power to come speak in front of you. And I need you to remember that we are asking for this GPA cap to be removed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fisk. Ashley Cotino, followed by Michael Parra.
Hello, trustees. My name is Ashley Catino, and I am a sophomore at Shadow Ridge High School. I also came here today to discuss my strong opposition to the GPA cap. Currently, I am ranked second in my class, and as of now, it is a title that I am proud to have achieved. With this GPA cap, being valedictorian and salutatorian will have no meaning. The cap being implemented can easily be achieved by many students in their junior year. Any student in my position would much rather have a lower class rank than share their title because of a cap that caters to students with lower academic achievements. I understand that the GPA cap was implemented to reduce stress and improve mental health, but it comes at a high cost. In one of the lowest achieving districts in the nation, why further hinder success? This GPA cap will cause juniors and seniors to have no incentive to challenge themselves. If someone has already reached the cap, why would they take AP Calc or Stats, or even for that matter, honors classes? As a student, I am relying on my school to prepare me for after graduation. To my knowledge, the pressures and stresses of adulthood are something that, at one point or another, every student will have to face. Life will never slow down for someone just because they are stressed. School is the perfect place for students to learn this. If we find ourselves overwhelmed with challenging classes, we have numerous resources to help us. It is best for us to push ourselves and learn our limits while we still have the help of parents, teachers, and counselors. When we limit a student's GPA, we are only limiting their success. This cap will only invalidate students' hard work and prevent further achievements. Trustees, I urge you to reconsider this cap and put it on the agenda to revote. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Michael Parra.
Madam President, fellow trustees, Superintendent Dr. Jesus F. Parra. My name is Michael Parra. I'm the owner of Alert LLC, Liaison Business Support Services. I'm a licensed real estate salesperson, and I have manifested a publication called Civic Duty. And probably wondering how I did this without a high school education. Well, I'm being tutored in reading, literature arts, language arts, and mathematics. And I found something out through these tutors and a social scientist. And I have some information. I have not forgotten to send you an email. And this magnet school, #1 in America, principal, if I send an email to him and you, and if it's something that you think is a good idea, will it manifest to the legislature? Because I think I have a good idea, because both teachers said, well, as an adult, I understand why mathematics is necessary. I've developed land with developers, and I understand why geometry is necessary and why algebra is necessary, and I have an idea that might inspire students to want to learn math. And I also read an article in the paper about safe leadership, and I got a link that I want to communicate to you that will be very helpful. So if I communicate this via email to you, Linda, and that president, are they two people that might influence the board to create an idea that I came up with that I think might help our 49 quality school level to move up maybe 2 or 3 or 1, like the magnet school leader?
Mr. Parra, we're not able to
Comment?
engage in dialogue during public comment. This is your time to share your
Well,
public
I just
comment.
want to communicate that to people, and I'm hoping that when I send it to Linda, that's all I can say. I have an idea, and I hope it's you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, at this time, we are closing public comment, moving on to item 6.01, the upcoming meeting of the Board of Trustees on Thursday, May 18th, 2023. That's next Thursday at 5 p.m. here in the boardroom. Okay, this time I'm looking for adjournment. Trustee Cavazos.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Trustee Guzman.
I second.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Cavazos, a second by Trustee Guzman. Please cast your vote. Trustee Williams is no longer on the phone with us, so let's see the tally. That motion passes 5-0. Colleagues, the time is 8:07. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.